delighted to welcome you here today, and a big welcome also to those joining us online. This is our 6th annual Digital West conference and is organised as a partnership between ATU School of Business and the ATU iHubs. Thank you to our sponsors, the Mayo Local Enterprise Office. Thank you for your continued support for this important annual event. Thanks also to our supporting agencies, Údarás na Gaeltachta, Enterprise Ireland and Westbic. To our speakers, you're giving us your expertise and your time free of charge, so thank you for your time today. Thank you to the exhibitors in the foyer and to the ATU Mayo campus management, caretakers and support staff for helping organise this event. Our MC today is Dr. Janine McGinn. Janine is a lecturer in the School of Business at ATU Galway-MAyo and Chair of the Masters of Science in Digital Media and Marketing. The last and a really, really big thank you to the team who helped put this event together and have done so for the last several years. Turla Rafferty from the ATU iHubs and Dr. Janine McGinn, Noreen Henry, Sharon Boyle and Laura Hegarty of the School of Business at ATU Galway-MAyo. Thank you. Every year at this event, we trend it on Twitter with the hashtag Digital West. So please, if you could engage on Twitter with hashtag Digital West, we'd love to trend again this year. And without further ado, I'll hand you over to Dr. Janine McGinn, our MC for today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Seamus. As Seamus said, my name is Janine McGinn and I'm a lecturer in ATU. It's really great to see so many faces here today at our event, our 5th event, Digital West event, and our first since the pandemic. So the theme today is digital disruption, the aftershock. And I suppose we were thinking of, during the pandemic, a lot of businesses started up online. They got new websites, they optimized their websites. There's been a lot of change, a lot of digital change. But what next? What happens next? So this is what we put to our speakers today. We wanted to find out what's happening, what happens after the disruption of the pandemic. What are the new technologies that are coming around? And what do we need to know? So Pat is up now, and Pat's going to speak to us about lifelong learning and digital transformation of his business. He's the CEO of Elveries. He's a lifelong learner himself, a barrister, an engineer, and recently graduated from our MSc in Digital Media and Marketing. So Pat, over to you.
All right, guys, listen, it's good to be here. Wouldn't be my style to come here and talk at something like this, but I didn't want to let down the guys here, so my arm was kind of bent to come and do it, but I'm going to give you an indication of what we see as digital transformation. And look, as Janine said, we're learning all the time. I don't think you'll ever learn enough about it. And, my knowledge of it is limited. We have a team at work who are well versed in it. They're all a lot younger than me and moving with it. But look, we're going to give an idea of the way we started online, what we see as digital transformation, and what happened during COVID and what has happened after, as we see it. So, look, digital transformation. I was trying to look over the weekend at a definition for it, really, and probably the best one I got is an organisation adoption of digital technology to, configure non-digital products, services or operations, and really to add value by digitising them. That's probably the best definition that it could get. Look, digitation covers every part of our business and every business, but I'm going to talk today about more specifically really online. And to give an indication where our business came from, I'm going to show you when we started our online in 2005, then that was the early period, then the intervening years, and then COVID and what happened after COVID, which was probably the most important piece. Look, early years, we started online in 2005. I'd come back from America in 2004 to take over. I had worked in Elvery's when I was in school and when I was in college, and then I went to America. I worked with CRH then for years, and I was with the requisition teams in America, and came back then when I got married and kids were starting to go to school and all that, and took over at that stage. And I had an indication of what was coming from the States in terms of online. So we set up an online site in 2005, and I was looking over the weekend again, I was looking at emails from then, and people were saying you shouldn't do it, it'll never work. And we started in a single office. There was one person. They packed all the orders, they sent all the orders, they brought them down to the post office. It was really primitive. We were on an Irish platform at the time, Buy For Now, that aren't here anymore. We had no customer service, we had limited fraud prevention, and very basic systems. And we started in one office, it was in Galway at the time. And I remember our fraud prevention at the time, and I still remember to this day in 2006, someone bought a treadmill in Dundalk, and it was off a stolen credit card. And I suppose we were younger then, and we found out that payment was declined anyway the following days. We got in a van and drove to the address and took back the treadmill. But when we got into the garage at the back of the house, now there was plenty of us in it. There was televisions and there was, you name it, in it. So that was our fraud protection at the time. So that was the early years as we see it. Then the intervening years, it continued to evolve. It was getting busier year on year, but it never really took off as such. I do think, and I'd be quite adamant about this, between 2010, 2013, 14, we missed investment opportunities. That was the time to really invest in it. And I think we missed a little bit in that. We needed to change platform, we needed to do a lot of things, but there was other things happening. Difficult economically, we were reorganizing the business, lots of things like that. So we definitely missed at that time, and we allowed some people to get a step ahead of us. But look, by 2014 we were back into it. 2015 we changed. We were on Buy For Now platform at that stage, and it really was held together with stick and plaster. Every time you made a change in it, something else would be affected, and it was difficult. And we changed to SAP Hybrids platform, which I'll talk about later, which has its own issues. The best thing about it is its scalability, but it takes a lot of work. Integrations are difficult. It takes a lot of work to work it. And I suppose that's what Anthem with SAP, expensive. But we changed to that in 2015, and the first time we really saw Black Friday and what it can do was in 2015. In December 2015. And I remember wife and I went to America for Thanksgiving, and we came back and it was bedlam. There was orders, and looking at it now, there weren't a lot of orders compared to what we do now, but when we looked at it at that stage, we couldn't deal with it. I remember up to that year on Christmas Eve, we were still getting orders out, and I distinctly remember driving tennis with orders on Christmas Eve in 2015, but we got them all out. But we weren't good at it. The place was all over the place. We were losing orders. We were sending orders out twice. And that's when that was one of the times, I think, that was one of the times that we said we're going to have to change it. We're going to have to change what we do. We're going to have to build offices. We're going to have to do this right. And I think we started that. That was our first lesson. And we weren't good at it. And look, I would say still online, we have a long way to go. But that was really the intervening years. I think we missed investment. I think that we could have done more in that time, but I think that December 2015 was a change point, really. And then COVID. Look, I tried to tie it in with what we learned from COVID and what we learned from in our online business and digitization from COVID. Look, I think every one of us can remember where we were when we were shut down in COVID. And actually, when the schools shut down, the colleges shut down, I was here. I was at a lecture with Laura in one of the rooms upstairs, and they had got word that the schools were closing and the colleges were closing. And I went back to work. We didn't really know what was happening. And then the next couple of days, it closed down the 22nd of March. And when it completely closed down, we weren't sure whether we could continue online. And we really didn't know, and we were worried if there's a gap. We think in any business, if you turn the lights off at all, it's hard to get the lights back on, and we were so conscious of that. So I remember we were looking at the government regulations and looking at any loopholes. And anyway, by the Saturday morning of the Thursday that they shut us down, we figured that we could service online and we were entitled to do it. So we started on that Monday morning. We had no staff, really. And in fairness, staff were afraid to work at that stage. They didn't know what was happening. So we got all our families together. They were all, like they weren't at school. So between around, I'd say 10 of us in the warehouse, between families, then between neighbours, between guys from football teams, playing with the lads, friends, we put a crew together and we started learning online again. We hadn't really been on the floor as much as we should have, and I'll fully admit to that. You tend to be detached a little bit from what's happening. So we had to go down that Monday morning. We had to learn how to process the orders, how to queue them up, and then pick, pack them, and do everything. And we started it. And I remember the first thing that we did, I remember that just prior to us closing down, we said a couple of things. We pulled all the staff in and we set a threshold limit for what we'd pay everyone. So anyone who was below that threshold limit continued to get paid what they got paid. And then everyone else, including us, were all on the same wage level. And I remember saying it to them. I still remember where I was when I said to them, look, if one of us is going to eat, we're all going to eat. So that's what we didn't know where we were going to survive. We didn't know what was going to happen. So after that, first week, we were slow. Next thing, the orders started coming in. And I think really that was March. By the end of March, we were starting to get on top of it. We could understand the systems. We were picking, we were getting orders dispatched. It was a little bit rough, but we were getting them out. And the revenue was starting to come in. And by April, the revenue was growing every year. Now, it helped. We had a warehouse full of treadmills and keep fit stuff. And 2 months earlier, I had every buyer in the place telling them that they'd committed too much money to treadmills and keep fit and everything else, and that it was storage costs. And next thing, they started selling. And next, we had vans on the road. We delivered every Keep Fit delivery ourselves. By the time we were finished, by the time we were back, everyone was working. We had 6 vans on the road with fully loaded up, with my brother driving one of them, and he works in the RSA. And he used to drive on the weekend and used to be always questioning the weight we had in the van. And I'd say, just get going, with treadmills. So that's what we did, but it taught us how to work online and to really, really see it from the point of view of, how this can work and what we were doing wrong. And the one thing, what we used to do, we'd come in the morning, 6 o'clock, we'd process all the orders, we'd get ready for picking. Then we'd go picking, and we'd try and have as much picked as we could by 9, 10 o'clock. Then a lot of the young guys would come in then and they'd start packing, and then we'd do another wave of picking and packing. Then we'd get all the Keep Fit deliveries ready into the vans and get them out. And then what we found after a couple of weeks, we were saying, we need stock here. We really need stock. Because when COVID hit, all orders were cancelled. That's nearly what happened universally across the business. And we started calling off stock. And then the brands. And once we started getting revenue in, we paid everyone. We paid all our suppliers. And what happened with a lot of competitors were they all had set out, well, it's going to be difficult, and they put them all on payment plans and said, we'll pay you whenever. And I think a lot of companies were accepting of that. But we made a decision in April, right, we're going to pay everyone. And the minute we paid everyone, straight up, they started saying, do you want stock? And we took stock in, we gambled. We took container after container in. We were on forklifts, you'd be up there till 11, 12 at night, stocking shelves. But every piece we were getting was going out. And one day in April, prior to Easter, we did the same level of sales we had done a year previous with shops open and everything else. So we knew we were going the right direction. So a couple of things we learned from it. When you were picking in our warehouse around 100,000 square foot, it's 3 warehouses building together with 2 mezzanine floors. And what happens is pickers get the orders on scanners to go picking, and they go down the warehouse and you go up the floors. Now you're taking around in order, so you're taking in order, so you pick the first product and you're taking in a full loop and you come back to the last product. And then you send that up for packing. There was a couple of things. One, the time that took. You were doing around 42,000 steps a day if you were on picking. And then when you were on packing, what we found of other people, like my neighbours or my brother, when they were in packing, if you didn't know the product, they were looking for scanners to scan the product so they could be 100% sure they were sending the right pair of shoes to everyone. So we started thinking about all of those things. And that really was the biggest catalyst for change we've ever had in our business, because as I said, we're not efficient for the level of orders that were coming in. We're not doing it right. We worked really hard and revenue started coming in, and that was huge for us. And then we said, look, we're going to start investing in it. So I really think COVID was one of the biggest drivers. It showed us what we needed to be doing, and what we've done since, I think, is the biggest transformation that, hopefully our business will ever see. And I'd be quite adamant about this. We have a long way to go. We are nowhere near where we need to be, but I think we're getting there and we're doing things to get there. And I split it down into 5 things because I was conscious of what we were asked to talk about, the 5 biggest learnings from COVID. And there were really, as I saw it, the things that came out of it: customer service, the most important, automation, sustainability, loyalty, and continuous learning at the end. And I'm going to say a few words about each of them now. That's not going. Try it this way. So customer service, that was the single biggest thing. What we found when we were racing around the place, picking and packing in COVID, there was a conference room in our business, and all the returns started coming in, and the only place we put them was a conference room. We had 1 customer service phone, and we had 1 girl there, and you could hardly see her behind all the layers of stuff that was coming back in for refunds and everything else. And every time you'd run past it, the phone would be ringing, and you'd be trying to hide, because if you answered the phone, that was a query, so that was 15 minutes, and you were trying to figure it out. And eventually, by the end of the first COVID shutdown period, we had more people in it. Then when we opened again, we got through all the returns, we got everyone refunded. The one thing that we did is we talked to everyone. So if we were slow getting back to people, we did keep in touch with them. We weren't afraid to tell them there was issues, but we got everyone done. By the time there was a second lockdown in 2021, when it closed from January to May, we had a customer service team in place then. There was 3 full-time, and there was 2 of my lads in it from school and someone else, another colleague of theirs, and that was the customer service team. But the difference at that stage, everything, refunds were processed within a day, all the phones were answered. And that has evolved now. We have a full-time customer service manager. There's 8 people in our customer service department now. They've all new offices, all the returns processed in a day. Now, we don't get a huge level of returns compared to some of our competitors, but that is the key. And there was 2 things that revolutionized customer service. There was 1, putting the people in it, giving them the facilities in the office to do it, and the other one was Zendesk. And Zendesk made a huge change for us in terms of queuing orders, in terms of making sure that they could get on top of orders straight away. And look, in our place, it'd be nothing that there'd be 2,000 open queries, dependent on the level of business. And they can get through them in a day or 2, dependent on. A lot of them are small, a lot of them would be, delivery issues with our couriers, that type of thing, that can be solved very easily. But by Zendesk, it made a huge difference. And I would think even now, Zendesk is probably overtaken by some of the the other providers now and needs to move on, but it revolutionised us. So that's one of the most important things in online is customer service and what they do and the calls they take right up to Christmas Eve. And one of the things we've always done, we have someone on the lines right up to Christmas Eve at 6 o'clock, because if someone is missing an order or something is gone wrong for Santi, that you can actually ring us and we'll try and solve it if we can. We'll get in a van ourselves and deliver it. And that has been huge. And we can be better at it, but that is one huge learning. And if you want a successful online business, customer service has to be key. Second thing we did is automation. Like, I'm not asking anyone to continuously every day walk 40,000 steps to try and fulfill orders. And there's a lot of things happening. Labour is getting scarcer. We rely a lot on part-time workers, college kids, school kids, all of that. And even they're getting more precious about their time, like including my own crew. You know, they're not as keen to work as maybe we were when we were their age. So what we are in the process of at the minute, we're automating our whole warehouse function. What we're putting in is a machine called an auto store. It's going to be the first one in Ireland. A lot of them in the UK. Port West are actually putting one in the UK at the minute, and our competitors have them in the UK. And basically, for want of a better word, it's a big cube, like you see there. It takes up a floor space of around 12,000 square foot, and it's 6 meters high, and it's a series of bins in a grid. Bin is 425 millimeters deep. And those guys at the top, there's 38 robots that run along the top, and they pull up the bins, and they bring the bins down to the pickers there who are along the conveyor. So instead of us having to walk to pick product, now the product comes to us, and the next phase of it, the product will arrive down and it'll be automated. The packing will be automated and label printer will be sent out. And look, these guys never get sick. They work at night, they work in the dark. And the one thing that they do, they queue our orders, so that system will know what we sold of a day, the day previously, and they know what's going well, and they know what orders are in the system. So at night, while we're all sleeping, they're pulling up the bins to the top of the product that needs to go out for the morning, so it's really quick. And then when you're at your station, then the bins come at you really quick. So you have to be quick, or the alarms will go off. You have to get the bins. They're queued up, they're coming at you, and you have to get your orders out really quick. It takes, believe it or not, we're in 120,000 square foot now. 3 big warehouses, 3 high bay warehouses like that. That machine will take 80% of our product, and it will free up the other 2 warehouses for another project, which I'll talk about in a minute. But that is the thing that can really transform our business, because it'll allow us to get orders out quick. It'll allow us, there'll be less theft. In the warehouse, they're delighted because I can't be going down the warehouse taking something off a shelf and bringing it to training or something like that, because you can't get into this machine, really. To get across the top of that machine, there's a wheelchair, and it goes along the grid, and that's how you get it. And all the product is in bins then below you. So the one thing that we did learn, the one thing we were told not to store in it was loose golf balls, because there was a guy in Holland who stored loose golf balls in it, and they all spilled into the thing. They had to get the bins out. They were down for 3 days. They had a guy to abseil down in to take all the golf balls out. So that's in the process. That has been ordered. Deposits have been paid, second payment has been done, all from cash flow. The bins actually started arriving for it yesterday. There's 38,000 bins in it. They're 425 mil deep by around 250 mil wide. And the guys rang from Spain and said, we're sending on your bins, and we said, fine. And I said, how many pallets? And he said, 1,836 pallets of bins. And we're full in our own warehouse now. We don't have room to move sideways, never mind. So we scrambled around. We have them in different places. 6 trucks arrived yesterday from the port. But just to give an indication of the scale of that, I said it to you, and we are going so fast at this, we have to catch up ourselves in it. I said to one of the girls yesterday, we need to insure those bins because they're in other warehouses outside of our own place. And she said, well, how much are the bins as part of the project? And I said, I don't know, ring them in Spain. So she rang them and they came back. And the bins alone are 1.5 million. And they're plastic bins, but there's that many of them. So that has started. We've started the building of that. We've tied it in with our own systems. We've a warehouse system called HQS that ties in with our SAP system. And Toyota Manual Handling are behind the auto store, even though they don't own auto store are a partner of theirs, and that's who we dealt with. There are other crews, but we found the Toyota guys were willing to train local Toyota dealers, manual handling dealers to come and service that, and they gave us the best training options for our own guys as well. So there's a video on it there, which I'll pay for you after because I'm conscious of time. But it just shows you the scope of the product, and there's a link on it that people can look at. No, I'm just going to keep going. That was the site. That was one other thing we did at COVID too. In 2021, we had a 5-acre site beside our warehouse, and we always thought there was a spring in it because there was water pooling in it. And we always said to drain that is going to take a long time. So there was actually a local builder in January 21, and I was driving home from work one evening and I spotted him walking. This is a guy who wouldn't walk. He wouldn't walk from the van to the site, but he was out walking. So I stopped him and I said, what are you at? And he says, well, sure, I can't work. And he said, I can't stay at home. And I said, how many steps have you done? He nearly did as good as us walking on the thing. He had 30,000 that day, you know. So I said, have you a free machine? And he said he had. I said, well, and look, I wasn't breaking any rules. Well, maybe I was breaking rules, but I can say it now. I said, come on to our site in the morning. So he moved his machine in, he moved the lads in, and I said, look, we have to get this site clear. And he started on it, and what was happened was there wasn't springs in it at all, but it was all sheetrock, and the water couldn't get down. That was the issue with it. So we cleared it completely. We put fill in it, and we had a site. We had a 5-acre site ready for action. And look, we got good value at the time because it was the middle of COVID, people couldn't work, but it evolved into a lot of things. That's that site just before Christmas. There's a new road that goes right around the site to redirect traffic in. They're all the pads for the steel for the new building. That has changed substantially since. Steel has gone up in 2 weeks. So that building is specifically for the auto store, to house the auto store. And our existing warehouses are going to change into something else. So that has to be ready by April, May. It's a lot further from when that picture was taken, but that gives a panoramic view. To the right of that picture, there's a container park of 15 containers, and that's all keep fit stock that we bought in from the Far East that you can't store in high bay in our own warehouse. So that's the site. So that automation, we all have to get trained on it. It has to be up by June. It'll probably be operational in October, November. And that has the potential singly to be the most important thing in our business in terms of fulfilling orders, in terms of replenishing our shops, in terms of replenishing online orders. That and other things that we're doing online, which I'll talk a bit about later. But the other huge thing in online at the minute is sustainability. And all our customers and the wider population of business want sustainable business. And you have to be able to do it and say you're doing it, and you have to talk about it in your website. And all our brands, the big strategic brands that supply us, would say that singly sustainability is going to be one of the most important marketing features as we go forward. So again, on the same site, on the bottom corner, we built a recycling centre, 10,000 square foot shed, all done during COVID times. And on the top of it, it recycles all our wood, it bales all our plastic, bales all our carpet. We had a problem with styrofoam, blown all over the yard, and it's filthy. So we got a specialist machine that melts down the styrofoam into bales, and it goes to Dublin, then it's used in house insulation. And a lot of our staff are initiatives like beach cleaning and that type of thing. But singly, and you can see the solar panels on that roof, and they're going on our existing warehouse and our new warehouse now. So by June, 56% of our power will be created by solar technology from our own warehouses. All our water is recycled off the roofs, and we're putting in a piece on the water that will filter and clean the water so you can drink it. Right now, that water is only used in toilets and in sinks. It's all mains water going to the sinks because it needs to be drinkable. So we're going to add to that. So all our packaging is recycled from the shops, comes back on our own transport links, goes into that shed, and it's baled and it's sent on then for value. But that is one of the huge things that we learned from online. And the other thing is loyalty. And look, I'd have a lot of views on that. Like Google and I know John Gallagher, I don't know if he's here yet or not, but Google are kind of ruling the world, and in a way, they're taking your own data and selling it back to you. I mean, it's the greatest scam. But they're good at it. They're expensive. Like we would generate a lot of our traffic from Google AdWords and pay per click, probably too much. We're changing that dynamic at the minute. We have a Marcis email marketing. We have a loyalty program which is ready for implementation. The only thing holding it up is that we may be re-platforming, so we're not going to do the integration twice. And that is huge. We can foster enough business from our own loyal customers and from our own database, and we don't have to pay Google silly money to do that. That will singly be the most important and the next thing in our business, because they're having a field day. Last year their rates came down because an awful lot of people had invested in Google AdWords and dependent on it, and now they were finding, they were being busy fools. We're at a level and a volume of business that it does. We're still getting a good ROAS. Is John Gallagher here? No. Yeah, all right. Well, we get a good ROAS. So,
Pat?
But it will change. Like, look, email marketing, some of our revenue in email marketing went from 3% to 10% last year with Marcis. So there's huge things that you can do, and there's a lot smarter people than me in our business doing it. Look, I'm conscious of time. The last thing I'd say is about continuous learning, and with a nod to Janine, Noreen and Laura. I started the MSc course in 2020. I was 2 months in, and then COVID hit. And then I was in the warehouse. So that was the reason everything was late and everything was coming in at 4 o'clock. And I just about survived it. I used to do it at night when I'd come home from the warehouse and start at 11 o'clock and finish it at 4. But we got through it. And I did learn a lot. I think I learned a lot. A lot of people have said I copied a lot too, but I don't know. The one thing I'd say about it, I'm not sure how much more I know, but I was sick of talking to these guys, and everyone loves money and online. Every agency, everyone else, it's all they're interested in. And they're looking at your revenue and they're saying, I want a piece of it. And it's so transparent. And that's the problem I have with it. If I have a shop where I'm paying rent to a landlord, and he's saying, you're doing well in that shop, and I'm saying, well, get lost, that's my rent. I'm not giving you any more. Whereas in online, it's so transparent, they have a good idea of what you're doing, and they all want a piece. And they're greedy, and they love money, and a lot of them are bluffing. And some of them are brilliant. So it's trying to separate them. And I would have said before I did the course that I always felt that, a lot of them were talking too quick for me, and, that I didn't fully believe them, but I didn't have the confidence to pull them up. I'm not saying I know any more, but they think I know more. And I think that's important. So continuous learning is important. I found a great resource here. I really enjoyed it. I met some great colleagues. When I was here, I really enjoyed it, and I don't think you should be afraid of it. There is such an opportunity out there. We're in the west of Ireland, we're doing a huge volume online. And I won't tell you the volume of business we're doing, but we have a big turnover. Our turnover is well in excess of 100 million. And our online is a substantial part of that. And we're all doing that from a small town in the west of Ireland.
It's an absolutely amazing presentation. Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Brenda Mannion, and Brenda is the COO of Merces Technologies. Merces Technologies have created Avatar Academy, which is a virtual learning experience platform for training in Ireland's thriving life science sector. Brenda is in charge of accelerating the talent pipeline of immersive developers to meet growing demand. Brenda has 20 years plus as an operations manager experience delivering solutions in industry, and she's active in policy development, research events, and also human rights groups. So today, Brenda's going to talk to us on her Avatar Academy and learning technologies. And the title of her presentation is Leveraging Immersive Technologies for Learning and Development. So welcome, Brenda.
So, it's lovely to be here this morning. Just a brief introduction. My name is Brenda Mannion. I'm the COO of Merces Technologies. We are a software SME based in Athlone. And following up at what Janine was saying, we have created Avatar Academy, which is a virtual learning experience platform. So, learning experience platforms essentially is user-centered software that aggregates an organization's training resources all in one place. It's personalized to the individual and their mastery of any given skill. And the training content that sits on our platform is fully immersive, and it mirrors real-life processes in a way that stimulates human senses, and it facilitates experiential training, that is learning by doing. The next slide. Just need to hit play. So here we have, this is our Avatar Academy, and essentially what it is, it allows people practice any task in a virtual environment as it records the data generated into a cloud database. The data can trace activity and report progress as it happens. It facilitates risk-free, scalable training without impacting production. It's tailored to analyse training performance and improve knowledge retention. So essentially, you put on a virtual reality headset. All of our training is hand-tracked and mobile. What we mean by hand-tracked is that you're not using controllers, gaming controllers, you're using your own hands as you would actually in the physical world. And what we mean by mobile is you're not tethered to a computer. And then we have data analytics that pick up from every interaction. Data is taken from the interactions that you have that have taken place within the software, and we feed that back to you for more insights. Next slide. So here it is. It gives you, as the slider is going across the screen, that is, we would take scans of an environment, and then the team of software engineers and creative developers within Merces Technologies digitally recreate the physical environment for the virtual world. And that's the front end that you're seeing. Then when we go back into the back end, we have all of those interactions are taking information points, and it comes back into these tools are able to help trainees and trainers track their progress and performance more intuitively throughout their experience. And we then use this data in making our platform smarter, more efficient and adaptive by tracking and analysing the learners' interactions. The platform can make tailored recommendations of learning experiences that are best suited to different individuals at different times in different contexts. We go to the next slide. So here, Boston Scientific, one of our clients, are convinced of Mercer's quality and Avatar Academy's performance, and that we are the future. And I just let you have a listen to hear what they have to say.
The TIBA app allows us to train people on complex chemical processes in a safe environment, allowing them to get used to the process, make mistakes safely before they're introduced to the actual environment where they'll be carrying out the process. This app overcomes a number of difficulties. So on some processes, we may not run these on a frequent basis. So we would have to pre-train people before they actually carry them out when we require them to do so. This allows us to actually train people in a virtual environment more frequently so that they're better prepared to actually carry out the process when they're required to do so.
The TIBA application changes the way we train by enabling a new environment to do training that is not impactful on any production line. This process in particular, it is a slow process that takes a long time to do. In the space of a day, you can run 6 or 7 times the same process that would take you 4 or 5 weeks. I think this is the cutting edge of a new form of training where we can introduce entire processes or production lines into a virtual environment and take cleaning really out of the production environment into a new environment where we decide to move lines between plants or areas. We can make sure that people in the new area are receiving the same standard training that was done in the original site.
So we're excited by this new technology and the partnership with Mercer's Technologies to deliver this, and we look forward to seeing this being a very great success for both companies.
So essentially, in summary, what we're talking about is digitising any process or procedure, particularly in high-value manufacturing or in life science companies. So what you can do is you put on the headset and you are now entering a digital representation of the physical world. We happen to work in life sciences, so it's entering in a clean room. These are highly regulated areas, and so training in them can be onerous. Getting access for people to train in them and getting them skilled in the areas in which they need to be skilled to work in those clean rooms can be difficult. So the beauty of virtual reality training is it makes it more accessible. You can train on a headset anywhere in the world. I can be in Dubai, you can be in Dublin, we both can put on a headset, we both can meet together, we both can work in that lab together. It's great for when people are on sick leave or on maternity leave and have been out and away from a laboratory for a number of months, that they can come back and refresh and retrain on that process or that procedure. If you're onboarding any new staff into your business and you need them to learn a process or a procedure, again, putting on the headset, they can learn. It's like kind of saying, look, I have this piece of machinery, it is really expensive to run, there's a high risk to individuals on using that. I'd maybe have to stop production to train this person, therefore the velocity of my production has reduced. Now what I can do is I can put on a headset. So rather than saying, here's the manual, read that, learn how to use this machine, I'm off. Oh, okay, fair enough. What I'll do is I'll give you a video, watch this video, learn how to use that machine. Or else you go, here's a headset, put it on, interact with this machine, interact with this environment, see how it works. It's learning by doing. This is really where the future of learning will come into play. And in particular, young people are expecting this. When we look at Generation X and Generation Z, we talk about digital natives, but when we're talking about the next generation coming up, I happen to have an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. They are immersive natives. They have an expectation that this type of technology is available in businesses and are surprised when we're not utilising it in the manner in which we could be. Next slide. So, digital disruption. So, we in Mercer's Technologies don't think we're at the aftershock yet. We think that we're just at the beginning of this digital transformation. And when it comes to disruption, what we see the challenges are being is, number one, disruption itself. Disruption means change, and change is scary. It brings uncertainty, it brings concern about our competency. Will we be able for this change? Will we know how to use this new technology? And more often than not, it is, will it mean more work for me? The speed of technological advancement. So the speed of technology exceeds the ability to train staff, leading to a skills gap, which then brings us onto the talent pipeline. Are we able to access suitably qualified staff for the job that we want them to do in our organisation? Can we go to the next slide? So, future workforce and the types of skills that are needed for the future workforce. So for the purpose of this slide, I have segregated them into technical skills and into personal skills. There is, however, an interconnectivity. There must be a clear link between interpersonal skills to technical knowledge and competence for the workforce of the future. Our social value system tends to focus on the elite status of technological skills. There has been a push, and understandably so, in the STEM subjects for the past decade or so. But we in Mercer's Technologies believe that we've not focused enough on the balance of growing, maintaining, and sustaining interpersonal skills along with these STEM subject skills. The most brilliant innovation is irrelevant if we're not skilled enough to use it. We as human beings, we're social creatures, and we need to interact with one another. It's part of our nature. While technology has increased our opportunity for connectivity, it also means we don't get to interact in person. The problem is we're becoming more and more dependent on technology to solve problems. True story, this morning, got into my car, I typed in the air code for the ATU campus here, and I set off. I live on the Dublin to Galway, just off the Dublin to Galway bypass, and I was convinced it was going to bring me down in towards Roscommon. Next thing I realised I was on a back road, and I had absolutely no idea where I was going, and it was dark. And I realised about 20 minutes into the journey, I was extremely tense, and I was praying to the technology gods that I wouldn't hear satellite lost, because I had absolutely no idea where I was going to. So when we have a tendency to overuse technology, another one, people of my vintage will remember that we used to remember people's phone numbers all the time. We had several phone numbers in our heads. We have now lost that capacity because we're so used to the little computer that we hold in our hand every day to take over that task for us. We no longer need to remember those numbers because it's in our phones. So if we happen to use technology in a passive observational manner, rather than in interactive or a self-focused manner, it diminishes our capacity to problem solve. And so that interactivity with technology is really important. Let me go to the next slide. So here, what we're finding in Mercer's Technology, in the talent pipeline and bringing in future people into the workforce, in particular young people, there has been an excessive use of technology. And this excessive use of technology is we all are prone to that. We all have, sat and gone down the rabbit hole of watching endless cat videos, or how to, pack things into our lives. Unboxing, washing up powder and re-putting it into lovely, perfect, fancy Tupperware. Those household hacks, all of those videos that we sit, and next thing we realise we've lost an hour in watching all of that, and we're not actually interconnecting and communicating with one another. So this can lead to an isolation, and we're seeing an increased issue with anxiety, and particularly social anxiety with young people. It means that we are less capable of problem solving and coping with adversity. There's a lack of face-to-face communication, and then therefore it is diminishing our social skills. And it affects our ability to learn new skills and build resilience, which we really need for their workforce. So we go to the next slide. What is resilience? It's the ability to manage life's challenges and setbacks and persevere, or better yet, flourish, stronger for the experience. Resilient outcomes are reliant on 3 core skills: effective, self-management and self-regulation, strong relationship skills, and develop social awareness. And resilience really is crucial for emotional intelligence. We go to the next slide. So, what is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions, enabling better coping with stress, to empathize and communicate with others in overcoming challenges and diffuse conflict. Emotional intelligent outcomes are reliant on resilience, empathy, self-awareness and self-regulation, and effective communication. So why do they matter? Why do they matter in business? They help us to navigate change and disruption. They are necessary to adapt to the complex multi-generational business environments that we all work in, to build strong relationships, foster positive work culture, anticipate a customer's needs, to drive innovation and experimentation, and enhance personal and professional growth. We go to the next slide. It's adopting a resilient mindset. Resilient organisations are better able to withstand major shocks and disruption and are better prepared to meet challenges and uncertainty. So here there's a few tips. I'm not a mental health expert, but here's some tips for individuals and businesses in helping adopt a resilient mindset. So embrace change and uncertainty, learn from failure and mistakes, focus on solutions and not problems, take care of your physical and mental health, set realistic and achievable goals, and learn from others to seek support and feedback. For businesses, it's really important to foster a growth mindset and a culture of innovation. It is really important to encourage experimentation and failure. Failure is important to embrace. We only learn from our failures. To prioritise customer and employees' well-being, to emphasise strategic thinking and planning, and encourage open communication and feedback. Go to the next slide. Did I skip a slide? No, maybe not. Where are we now? So, when we're talking about emotional intelligence and technical skills and interconnecting them to one another, we're talking about digital intelligence. Digital intelligence provides a framework for digital transformation. Emotional intelligence, one of the ways that we can integrate them together is provide emotional intelligence training for employees, encourage active listening and empathy, have regular check-ins and evaluations, set digital use guidelines and encourage digital emotional balance, have emotionally designed digital products and services, and incorporate emotional intelligence in design. Digital intelligence is the ability to acquire and apply new knowledge and skills related to digital technologies. So we go to the last slide here. So technology, in immersive technologies, we see technology as a tool. It is a means, not an end. So digital disruption happens when technologies, services, capabilities, and models change the value of the industry's existing services and goods. Digital transformation is less about the technology and the tools and more about people and culture. And businesses need resilient people, better able to adapt to the rapid pace of change that digital disruption brings. So back into that interconnectivity with human beings, interconnectivity with the technologies that we use to balance out both our emotional intelligence and our digital skills for the work for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brenda. So next up, we have a team for a very exciting launch. And before I introduce Una Fox, who's leading the team, I want to tell you a little bit about the Innovation Exchange. So the Innovation Exchange is Ireland's first innovation marketplace. It connects large companies facing digital transformation challenges, so with technology companies. So large companies who have digital transformation challenges, it connects them with the smaller companies who would be innovative. And hopefully these then can fast-track the solutions for large companies. The initiative is managed by Further, who were formerly Dublin Business Innovation Centre, and it's also funded by SkillNet Ireland. So today we have the launch of the Innovation Exchange in the West, and the Innovation Exchange is going to be managed in the West by Galway Technology Centre. And the Galway Technology Centre, or GTEC, will be named as the first regional channel partner of the Innovation Exchange today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the team. And so there's a big team here, and Una will introduce the rest of the team, Conor and Noreen and friends.
Hello everybody. We're delighted to be here this morning, and thank you Digital West for a wonderful and informative event so far. Before we start, we'd love to play you a very short video which we think conveys the spirit of the Innovation Exchange. Sorry, the sound is a little bit off there. You can hear it on the website if you want to get the music right. So, as we're hearing this morning, market disruption driven by external market forces such as pandemics, war, supply chain, and indeed emerging technologies is putting well-established companies under pressure to innovate, whether that's to maintain or to gain competitive advantage. And regardless of their size or success, all companies need to stay ahead of the curve. We're all familiar with what has happened to the failed to innovate crew, the textbook classics like Nokia and Blockbuster. Companies that were dominating their industries, but then a shift in market forces driven by new innovations had a disastrous effect on their success. The argument for continual corporate innovation is strong indeed. So rather than pursue internal response to market disruption, which can be expensive, risky, and lengthy, more and more companies are seeing a value in boosting their innovation by partnering with external talent, opting to collaborate with SMEs effectively, from early stage startups right up to well-established solutions providers. However, there are barriers to collaboration between large organisations and SMEs. We know that the SME community, the backbone of our economy, is developing clever solutions to complex challenges which business are increasingly facing. But we also know that it can be difficult to identify and access buyers for their solutions. Even if you do get in the door, the length of the sales cycle and the complexity of the procurement can be a significant barrier to your commercial success as an SME. On the other side, we are seeing evidence of a huge appetite among large organisations to work with the SME community to solve innovation challenges. But these large organisations find it very time-consuming and very complex to find their way to the right solutions and to the right providers. So in steps the Innovation Exchange. At its most simple, the Innovation Exchange is a marketplace for innovation, where large businesses facing innovation challenges are connected with talent to help them achieve their ambitions. So what exactly do members get? Well, large corporates get access to a pool of Ireland's most talented solutions providers that can accelerate their innovation journey. Our SMEs are screened and their solutions are vetted. This removes a lot of the risk for the prospective buyer. Scaling technology companies or software companies get instant sales pipeline of qualified buyers. They get access to the key decision makers in these companies and to very important market intelligence. On top of that, there's training and mentoring designed around helping SMEs succeed in selling into large corporates and, very importantly, closing deals. The process is super simple and very low risk, I suppose, which is really key. We start with the publication of a challenge via an online webinar and an opportunity for Q&A with the buyer. This is followed by a simple process of proposal, assessment, pitching, and eventually a deeper engagement. And we all have our eye on point 6 there, which the deal is done. And, you know, we do like to think that we are getting to that place, but it is very important to emphasise that the benefits of the Innovation Exchange extend way beyond this. It offers, yes, a qualified sales pipeline, but a whole host of other benefits. And we are seeing from SMEs huge feedback around the face time that they're getting with prospective customers and the opportunities to pitch and the feedback that they are getting from that engagement. The training and mentoring, and of course, all important networking. So, the Innovation Exchange has been up and running for nearly a year now, so who's on board? When we launched last February, we did not know what the appetite would be like, and even if we did get companies on board, what the levels of engagement would be. The calibre of the 24 corporate partners that we have on board today and the huge commitment they have shown has actually surpassed our expectations. This is a group of companies with huge business development ambitions. The very healthy and progressive attitude towards innovation adoption and working with external talent to be the best that they can be. In publishing their challenges via the Innovation Exchange, these companies have been very generous, providing industry insights and company information to SMEs so that they can truly understand the market into which they are building and selling solutions into. This has enabled the SMEs through the Innovation Exchange to submit proposals that are very relevant and very focused on the needs of the large organisation, and that ultimately gives everybody the best chance of success. On the other side of the occasion, we have over 250 SME members of the Innovation Exchange. These are all ambitious, scaling companies who innovate for a living. They're all developing world-class solutions inspired by their deep understanding of emerging technologies. So let's talk achievements. So what have we, or more importantly, our members got on in the year? In this relatively short space of time, 20 SMEs have moved into a deeper engagement phase with an Innovation Exchange corporate partner. In most cases, this means that they've been successful in both the proposal and the pitch stages, and now they've been invited to maybe deliver a second pitch or to enter proof of concept discussions. One deal announced at the end of last year really illustrates the fast-tracking element of the Innovation Exchange. The contract involves Exertis, which is the IT services company of DCC, and Digital Workforce, which is a technology scaling company that develops solutions in robotics automation, process automation. Exertis published a challenge via the Innovation Exchange in May, and Digital Workforce responded, providing a solution which really hit the spot, because following a pitch and a proof of concept discussion, a deal was done to enter a paid pilot. And I suppose, you know, what's really noteworthy about this is from pitch to contract was 6 weeks. So I think most of you will acknowledge that getting a deal done in that time frame is quite the achievement. So as we get stuck into 2023, the Innovation Exchange will facilitate over 20 challenges in the year. And actually in the first week of February, we'll have challenges from Bord na Móna, IBM and Ryanair. And if anyone is here today or listening online and they would like to be part of those challenges, if you apply to be part of the Innovation Exchange this week, we'll make sure you're onboarded on time for these opportunities. Indeed, if you're a corporate out there looking to explore new ways to innovate, Pat, I'm looking at you wherever you are, because clearly you have that open mindset which we're looking for, but please do get in touch. We'd love to talk to you as well. But I suppose what's most exciting about 2023 so far is the nationwide expansion of the Innovation Exchange. It's got off to an amazing start, and we're so delighted to announce the Galway Technology Centre as the first regional channel partner of the Innovation Exchange. And already we have learned so much from working with Galway Technology Centre. Their deep familiarity with the business ecosystem in the west of Ireland allows us to tailor our programme to meet the needs of companies in the region. With their involvement, the Innovation Exchange can be woven into the fabric of the existing supports and networking activities happening on the ground, and this gives a really seamless experience for SMEs in the programme. We will welcome Noreen Conway from the Galway Technology Centre on stage very shortly to tell us plans for the West. But first, I'm delighted to invite the Innovation Exchange Programme Director, Conor Carmody, and Jill Holtz and Michelle Davitt from Parents and Brands to give us a flavour of the programme from the perspective of the SME.
You might need another one, do you?
Thanks very much. And you take that.
Two mics.
So thanks, Una, for that very good overview. And I thought what we might do is we might ask Jill to try and bring it a little bit to life for us from an SME, and how have you found the programme? So I might start off and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me. So I'm Jill Holtz. I'm one of the co-founders of My Kids Time Limited, which is a digital business based in Galway since 2007.
Okay. And what do you do?
Well, so...
Since I'm still trying to figure that out.
Exactly. So over that time, the main part of the business, for those who may be familiar, is mykidstime.com. It's an information website for parents. It's our teenager brand. It's 16 years old, and we've grown a very large global community of parents who connect with those channels. We have 6 million global, 600,000 Irish connecting with us. Very vocal community, and so we're very much in the digital advertising space, and we saw an opportunity which we launched just before COVID called Parents and Brands. It's our digital insights and research platform that we've built. We can tap into that community. They are very vocal, they're very happy to give feedback, and we're very passionate then about running tailored research projects for companies to understand the why and help avoid wasted spend. That's the problem we help solve. So what do I mean by that? Understanding why. So it's great that 80%, you run a survey, for example, and you say 80% of people say they'd be interested in a new product, but understanding why they would be interested in that helps inform product launch, communications, marketing, drive sales. The second thing is, before you go developing anything, new products, traditionally people do a focus group, maybe they'll do some online research. But you need to sense check along the journey. You need to be sure that you're not going to waste spend as you go. So you might be developing an app, revamping a website, going into a new market. Before you spend, you should be getting cost-effective consumer research.
So you are looking to talk to large corporates, big businesses, and you want to work with them to help them understand their research needs back into kind of consumers, into parents.
Yes, and our platform facilitates and automates some of that process, allows them to connect in a very tailored way to who they want to hear from, and we can leverage that community that we've built on the parenting side, as it were.
Excellent. So we're here talking about the Innovation Exchange, and we're launching in Galway this week, and we're delighted with that. Our thesis, as we set out the Innovation Exchange, was that it's difficult for SMEs, and we heard Una talk about SMEs being the backbone of this economy, and for SMEs like yourself to get in front of corporates.
Definitely.
And to kind of pitch. So what's your experience on that?
So my experience is it's a long process. Trying to identify who's the right decision maker can take a long time. You're trying to trail through contacts and networking, leveraging, finding people. Often there's gatekeepers that just won't let you get to that decision maker who may well be interested in your solution. So that's just a laborious process. So that was one of the reasons we applied for the Innovation Exchange. Was it was really appealing to us that there was a kind of a way of getting a jump start on that.
Short circuit that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we saw from Una there, you know, we've had about 20 pitches last year. We hopefully will build that up again this year. How have you found the process so far, and what have you got out of it, I guess? Okay,
a few things, and Una touched on them. I mean, obviously the chance to hear directly from a corporate what their challenge is and how you might possibly, solve that problem, and have the opportunity then to pitch. When you get to a pitch stage, you're also assigned an account manager. I've often said this about the whole enterprise kind of startup ecosystem as you could do with an account manager going through and helping you. So this is really invaluable because you are able to talk to that account manager prior to the pitch. They can help you with your positioning, make sure you're really putting your best foot forward. So that's really helpful. But there's way more. There's training, there's live training, there's on-demand training, the networking you mentioned, so talking to other SMEs, looking at possible partnerships. And then actually, one of the really great things for us was the process makes you, in a very limited word count, describe what you can do for the corporate.
Yeah.
That is such an excellent exercise. So basically I have to say, what is the problem you're solving? What's your solution? What are the upsides? And a quick summary, and all within a set word count. I mean, that's fantastic. That was such a useful exercise for us.
Yeah, there's the old phrase, I wrote you a long letter because I didn't have time to write you a short letter.
Exactly.
And, you know, one of the things we do to the corporates, so as we're working with people like Jill, and we're saying, you've gone to look at a corporate challenge, you want to send in a submission. Our offer to the corporates is that we won't send you in reams and reams and reams of paper. We'll send you in, from Jill, a half a page. And so we can send 20 submissions to a corporate. It takes up 10 pages. They can work through those in a kind of an hour or two. So I guess what we're trying to do, and you're a great advocate, by the way, I'm glad we picked you, but what we're trying to do is simplify the whole process, is to make sure that for the corporates it's really, really easy to find companies like Jill, and for Jill then it's really easy for you to get in front of as many corporates and to kind of work them and try to work that sales pipeline. Because, you know, for all of us, the sales pipeline is the biggest issue. And believe it, it's for the corporates too. So what we're trying to do is just help that and kind of work it through. Anything interesting that you've come across as you've been pitching? Any kind of interesting angles or outputs that you've come across?
Well, I mean, we've been successful to pitch for one company, a well-known insurance company in Ireland. So, and the feedback was great. We're at kind of next steps. We're just waiting to hear from them on that. The other interesting thing was the feedback that we got when we weren't necessarily invited for other pitches, but you do get feedback. Some of that feedback was, look, this is great, we're just not there yet, or we've other priorities, so you're on our radar now. Again, just to be known and that they're aware of your solution, and that you're kind of, this idea of the marketplace, you're in their heads. You have visibility.
Yeah. So it's that marketplace idea. You mentioned the feedback. So anyone who pitches, we make sure we try our best to get the corporate to give us the feedback, so you know what worked and, more importantly, what didn't work. And I think you can build on that. And you also mentioned something really interesting. There's a huge pool of talented SMEs that we're starting to work with. We've over, I think, 220 now. We're going to try and get to double that this year. But there's actually now some SME peer-to-peer collaboration. So we started off trying to build a market of corporates to SMEs, and we're now seeing SME to SME, and if we can build on that this year, there's this lovely innovation marketplace that's starting to come together, which is hugely interesting. What's on your agenda for this year, Jill? What does 2023 hold for you?
Well, we're rolling out some new features on our platform. We actually do a lot of our own research, that be consumer behaviour and sectoral stuff. So we'd love to have a whole drill down facility, you know, kind of cool BI thing going on there. And then the other thing is to really develop some self-service to maybe allow more companies to come on and ask a quick sense check question along, as I mentioned, that can maybe you're developing a product and you do a bit of initial research and we come back and check at different points in the journey, allowing that, facilitating that through the technology and the platform, and winning more business. So hopefully more and more corporates. So we'll be continuing with Innovation Exchange to access those opportunities.
Fantastic. Last question before I leave you go, for the audience here or for the audience online, and as an SME, what advice do you have for anyone who may be considering getting into a program like the Innovation Exchange? What makes it work, or what do you have to do to make it work?
Well, I mean, I absolutely go for it if you want to get your solution in front of corporates, decision makers. The great thing is it's people like head of innovation or head of digital transformation. So they're actually sitting across the business. So absolutely go for it, engage, do the trainings, participate in the workshops, go on, each challenge is on a webinar. Even if you don't think you're going to pitch, still go on and hear what that corporate, you never know what the opportunities are there.
And you know what? It's the one thing I've observed looking at 20 or 20 plus corporate challenges last year, and we bring about 50 SMEs onto every call. We all have this lovely, reticent Irish way about ourselves, and we won't go on. And like, you have a corporate in front of you who's there, who'll give an hour of their time, who'll answer any question you have, and we sit quietly. And like, just do the discovery, ask the question, can I pitch my idea? Give me 30 seconds for an idea. We had one corporate on, and after 45 minutes, they said, look, we're finished, but I'll stay for 15 minutes if anyone would like to ask me anything or pitch me your idea. And there was tumbleweed. Lads, please, come on. So I'm with you.
I wasn't on that
No,
one.
you weren't, Jill. No, you weren't, Jill. So, but that notion of kind of doing the discovery, asking the questions, starting to build the sales pipeline is hugely important. Jill, thank you so much for coming into us this
Thank you.
morning.
Thanks so much.
I'm going to hand over now. So we mentioned that we're here launching
Okay.
the first of our
How
regional
many?
partners. So we want to build the Innovation Exchange, and we want to make it a truly national programme. And we're delighted that the Galway Technology Centre are our first partner. So Noreen Conway, who's the Regional Collaboration and Outreach Manager for GTC, is going to spend a few minutes with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, Conor and Una. It's a very exciting morning for GTC. And Jill, you told a great story, because that really just sums up the Innovation Exchange programme. So I'll just start off by saying that Galway Technology Centre, or GTC as we're known, we're delighted and honoured to be selected as the first regional channel partner to the Innovation Exchange programme. And more importantly for us, we're proud that the West region has been appointed to lead out on this exciting new collaboration. So it says a lot for the businesses here in the west of Ireland. Next slide. So why was GTC selected as the first regional partner? For those that aren't familiar with us, you might allow me to give a brief overview on GTC. So you see from the map, we're based in Galway City, and we have a regional remit right across the west. So we are one of the largest innovation centres in the country. We offer space and support to meet the needs of innovative, globally trading, ICT, digital media, and knowledge-based sectors. We have 42 companies on site at present, with over 350 employees. And currently, as of last week, there's 100 new hires on vacant between those 42 companies. So we are growing, and we're a very, very proud community at GTC. We're very proud of the fact that those 42 companies give such a huge value and impact to the local economy. So we're really, really proud of them. We also have a home and hub space, as we call it, a co-working space, which today supports over 50 small businesses and remote workers. Next, our extension project, supported by Enterprise Ireland, is nearing completion. We should have the keys handed over to us by the end of June this year. So that'll see an additional 16 office spaces for scaling tech companies here in the west of Ireland. We'll also have a conference space in addition in the new extension. More recently, supported by the Regional Enterprise Development Fund from EI also, we introduced a regional outreach and collaboration remit, and that's my role. And we felt that the Innovation Exchange programme fitted perfectly into this commitment that GTC has to support SMEs across Mayo, Roscommon, Galway and the surrounding areas. Next slide. So, how do we help SMEs in GTC? So the ladder there, the pathway, we provide a clear pathway for businesses to scale and grow. We aim to be world-class leaders in providing knowledge and supports to a scaling business and with our supporting initiatives. And these initiatives include programs, you'll see there on the ladder, programs in funding access, and that's ongoing at the moment, partnered with PwC. exporting to overseas markets. We have a doing business in the US program currently running. Scaling education classes. We also have a global network where we utilise our contacts in countries like the UK, France and the US, and we help our clients and other clients in the West to get set up overseas and to establish their markets there. And I suppose at this point, the Innovation Exchange programme sits perfectly into our programme agenda here. Vital to the success of GTC and to our clients is the support from the local network. Without them, we're nothing. Like the ATU here today and the ATU in Galway with Dr. Megan and Turlock in the ATU iHub, the continued support we get from them is it's so valuable to us. And other local universities. Our partners, Westwick and the Chamber of Commerce, EI, Leo, just to name but a few, that local network is vital. We're also a key member of the Galway tech ecosystem. It's a very strong tech ecosystem. We all work for each other and with each other, and we support and participate in all local events. The GTC staff mantra is get involved. Doesn't matter what it is, get involved. And we also have the same mantra with our GTC community. Next slide, Brian, please. So my question is, do you want to scale and grow your business? Ultimately, as Una and Conor outlined, by signing up, an SME can improve their sales pipeline and achieve commercial success by taking part in the challenges and the collaboration opportunities, as Jill outlined there so well. And then next slide, Ben. So I suppose finally, really, we're launching here today, but your contact points here in the West are myself as a regional outreach. We're mobile, so we can be contacted. We can present the innovation programme to you at your place of work on Zoom, or you have our email addresses there. My colleague Brian has been working very closely with Una and Conor over the last number of weeks, and I know that 15 SME businesses in the West have already registered for the Innovation Exchange programme. So you'll get Brian at brian.muldoon@gtc.ie and myself, Noreen, at theinnovationexchange.ie. So that's it from GTC. We're really looking forward to connecting with you all. I know there's a coffee break coming up, so anyone that's in the room, we'd be delighted to speak with you. And online, just give us a call or on the email, drop us a mail. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much, and far be it from us to keep you away from coffee. So just to say thank you, Noreen and Brian, we're really looking forward to the partnership. And as we think about the Innovation Exchange today and our purpose, we are crystal clear. We are developing a marketplace for innovation. It will be a dynamic ecosystem that will allow SMEs and large corporates to take control of their own transformation. And, you know, we're really excited about that, and we would really ask anyone, if you're an SME, if you're a large corporate, just get in touch through the innovationexchange.ie, or if you're located in the West, please get in touch with GTC. And thank you all for listening. Enjoying the Innovation Exchange. Thank you.
So, who do we have up next? Well, we have, and I'm really looking forward to this, we have Kieran Crean. So Kieran Crean is another Mayo man. We had a few Mayo men on this morning. We had Pat Rowland earlier. And Kieran is, I suppose, brought to fame because of his Mix Garage, where we all go on to Mix Garage website and buy those car parts that are so expensive elsewhere, and we can get them at a better price on Mix Garage. And also, Kieran has another business that he'll tell us about called Wave OMS. So he is a visionary internet retail leader, strategist. And not only is he a visionary internet pioneer, but he also executes what he speaks. So let's hear about his innovations. Really looking forward to it. Kieran.
Afternoon all. Thanks, Janine. I'm not too sure about the visionary side, but sure, we just tend to get on with things. I tend to kind of crack on with a presentation. I don't really like giving them normally. I prefer Q&A. Actually, last week when I got an email, when Pat asked me, it was pre-Christmas, I got an email from Janine last Tuesday to say that we're looking forward to see you next week. Can you send us on your presentation? And I went, shit. I don't want to have anything. So I said, "What can I get it to you by the weekend?" I think it was last night at 7 o'clock. They would have sent down. So look, I'm going to fly through this. I'm going to fly to this, and if there's any kind of questions or anything, I'm more comfortable with Q&A. No questions off limits. Ask me a question any time, either during, before, or after, and I'll take you through this. In particular, Janine did mention that we did spin out a second business, which I'd like to take you through as part of what we did in mixedgarage.com within digital transformation. I think digital transformation is great, and it's as a word, and as a phrase, it's fantastic, and it does describe business. But I think a business is continually should be continually involved in transformation. So whether that's digital or process underpinned by digital. To me, and I come across a great phrase which I'll share with you on the slide here, but to me, transformation is all about how do we serve the customers better. Everything has to be aligned against that. So whether it's better user experience, better product, how to serve that, better customer service, better fulfillment, everything around serving the customer better must be underpinned to transformation. And therefore, it is an ongoing and continuous evolution that really kind of never stops. Because ultimately, we're all trying to serve our customer better. And how better to do it than actually look at your processes within the business and see, is there a better way to do it from a manual process standpoint, and then how to bring tech to bear to achieve that. So anyway, I'll go through these. Next. So just something very quickly. Mixedgarage, 19 years in e-commerce, founded in 2004. Distribution centres, we've our headquarters in Dublin, Park West. We have a distribution centre in Ballina. And we've just done a deal to launch with some space in Newport in Wales. We trade through, so we have a number of different angles. We trade through mixedgarage.com. We have launched a physical retail offering called the Car Rack Store, which is basically leveraging on the niche for us of an important sector, which is travel and leisure, car racks, roof racks, bike racks, and everything around that. We have a vertical site, carracks.co.uk, recognising in the UK that there's 32 million vehicles on the road, and that mixedgarage.com offers a very wide spread of product, where in reality, for that sector, that should be a 9-10 million business on its own. So we go through, and again about the verticals, and then on the we at the moment we're completely transforming our own engine to continue with the vertical strategy, and we also offer a small bit of 3PL. So out of our Ballina warehouse, while it also fulfills for mixedgarage.com, we also do all of the Cool Camp kits for the GA. So we offer a logistics facility. So in a space of 6 weeks over the summer, we sent out about 100,000 kits to moms and pops for the GA throughout Ireland, all driven to our Ballina store, all underpinned to the fulfillment tech that came out of Mixedgarage, which we had to look at from a digital transformation standpoint, because during COVID, the mixedgarage.com business doubled overnight, and we had to make sure that our systems, etc., had this capability to cope for that. And equally then, notwithstanding 19 year in business, we just launched a software startup called wavems.com, which is a flavour of our warehouse tech to help other companies who have a warehouse to fulfil their product more efficiently, accurately, better, etc. So that's about us. I would believe that digital transformation is a constant path. For us in Mixedgarage, because of the nature of our sector, so our core of our business is we sell car parts and products with automotive. On that side, we could not, well, when we started, probably Shopify wasn't around, but there was certainly other e-commerce platforms that were available. However, automotive side is probably one of the hardest areas to succeed at in e-commerce, predominantly because of the spread of product that you actually sell. To give an example, let's say we sell one range of Bosch braking, right? Bosch brake pads that would have about 1,200 part numbers. Those 1,200 part numbers would suit a car park which covers 90% of the European car model base. So if you multiply, and one set of brake pads, like BP 120, for example, suits all the Passats, Golfs, etc., Skodas of a certain era. So if you take a single set of brake pads and explode it out to all the cars that it fit, you could have 100,000 listings, right? So that's a single set of brake pads. You now bring an option, a good, better, best on braking. So you go for Bosch, you bring a Mentex, you bring a Bembo, and now all of a sudden, just for brake pads alone, you could have a search index that might have the best part of 500,000 records, right? And then add filters and sensors and exhaust components, etc. So our product index that we index every night has 42 million records, right? So for us, in the automotive side, we had to start immediately with innovation in order to sell the product set that we needed to sell and serve to customers, to enable a customer to put in their car reg and find the exact products that fit their car. So for us, we had to build a proprietary tech stack to support that. The background Mick and I we came from a software background, so it was, I suppose, we had to do it, so we had the skills to do it, so we cracked down with that. But in order to support the sector that we're in, we're constantly undergoing transformation. How do we serve our customers better? How do we make that index faster? How do we ensure that if there's two different choices of brake pads for a car, that the customer picks the first one 100% of the time? And we're constantly looking to improve on that. And like Al Pacino said, on any given Sunday, it's all a game of inches, right? No one's ever going to solve the problem overnight. So for us, it's every single day, it's how do we push a little bit further down the road of improvement, whether it be through UX or warehouse, or product, or service, or indeed administration. How do we tie it all together to lighten the load across the organisation? And then the thing about transformation and digital transformation is that when you do it and you put it in place, you need to measure it. You need to measure the success of it to see, do I need to evolve? Do I need to change track? Is that working for us? Is it not? If it is, how do we improve it? How do we go further? Were the results as expected? Were they worse? Were they better? Etc. So you measure, you improve, you change tack, ultimately to get to the goal to serve your customers better. And for us as a business, we're incredibly tight. We're like tight arses. So if we can save, we will. And save not necessarily means from a cost standpoint, but also means from time, because time is the most expensive thing. So we will continue to do so. So the whole transformation, the process improvement naturally comes to us, because anywhere we see leakage, we look to plug it. Why did it happen? How do we close the gap and move on? Look at the next. COVID. So again, it's I know the theme of this is coming out of COVID. So COVID has massively accelerated mixedgarage.com. So overnight, our business practically doubled. Like everybody else, we had our COVID plans ready to shut down the organisation. Indeed, while everybody was out buying rice and toilet paper, the business plummeted 50% that weekend. And we thought, shit, okay, here we go. But then I distinctly remember the following Tuesday, I think we got something like 2,000 orders, and we went, right, here we go. So, and we had to work out how to solve that and how to go with that. And while we always had a level of systemic approach to our fulfillment, which is picking, packing, pulling orders from the shelf, packing and getting out the door to the customer, it just wasn't good enough for the new environment and the new that we saw ourselves in. So we locked Mick into a room for a month with some hard cold coffee, feeding him through a tray, and he came out with what evolved to be a way of one mess. But ultimately, we knew that we had to transform our processes, or we wouldn't have died, but it would have cost us, right? We would have looked in the rearview mirror and went, hold on a second, we now have to run 2 shifts, right? Run 3 shifts. And when you look back, if you have to linear scale your fulfillment operations to match your business, well then your P&L is never going to look any different. It's just going to look like a linear scale, assuming you've got the right allocation of resources to volume going out the door. So for us, we knew we had to do something, and therefore we had to evolve, we had to transform our process. So we literally, we failed, and we continuously failed for the best part of about a month. But we were testing, and ultimately we arrived at a process where we went, that's it. And the process actually turned to be an incredibly simple one. We took all the complexity away from the front end of what we're trying to achieve, and we basically allowed, through a very clever algorithm, to kind of run itself and drive it, and which I'll take you through on it. COVID also opened up significant opportunities, massive opportunities. again, we kind of recognize that mixedgarage.com, that within our existing product set, we had some areas of core competency that we were incredibly good at, but was maybe potentially lost within the mixedgarage.com wide product catalogue. And therefore, we kind of recognize that, we really should leverage our verticals here. Again, so carracks.co.uk, for example, which for us is a multi-million business, but it deserved the time and the space and a separate P&L, a separate category manager, separate procurement, etc., to grow and thrive, right? Because we were only going to limit it within the mixedgarage.com. So again, we re-engineered our platform we looked at, to create a vertical site, we looked at all the various sites that are out there, so whether it be Magento, Shopify, etc. And we felt that through the nature of our product and the drill set and the user experience that we had to deliver to the customer to get the right product, that indeed the fit wasn't out there for us. So also, when you're working with product data, data is very, very hard and it's very expensive to render into a format that encourages a customer to buy. So what we were looking and we were facing is that we would have the mixedgarage.com proprietary stack, which include a product information module, right? But now we were looking to duplicate that information across a separate platform, and then having to keep that link in current, which actually is quite a difficult thing to do. So what we decided to do is we decided to launch what we call verticals, and basically of our existing product engine. So we've one single core engine, but we would build separate shrunk down versions of mixedgarage.com with very basic initial functionality, but so it's all coming off it. So we continue to sell roof racks and mixedgarage.com, but now we just say, give us that product set and launch it over here and call it carracks.co.uk, right? So when we amend the product within our environment, it's amended immediately, renders immediately on both sides, right? So for us, again, that acceleration, the recognition that that's a route that we want to go on, a strategy we want to follow, come out of COVID, and just sitting back and looking where do we want to go and what product sets are core to us. And in particularly for a market for the UK, where we found through a previous entry that the mixedgarage.com, while we actually have very decent revenues in the UK mixedgarage.com, we're a little bit of all things to all people, right? And that's not necessarily good enough. And you don't have to be in a market where you've 32 million vehicles. There's a great multi-billion business in the UK called sparkplugs.co.uk, right? So for us, we kind of recognize that. It took us a few years to do it, but that's the strategy that we're driving and we're following. I like this. I completely plagiarized this from the Enterprise Ireland website. But digital transformation is all about redesigning your business to serve your customers better. So how do you serve your customers better? And you start with those. Are they getting deliveries on time? Are they getting product on time? What's the return rate? Are they being let down? What's the level of expectation? What's the conversion rate on the website? So are we getting customers to the web to quicker? Are they getting the right product? Do we have not a choice for customers? So the conversion rate is great. When so there's no I suppose reason to move to a different site, etc. So for us, it always comes down to that benchmark. How do we redesign our business to serve our customers better? Again, I think probably this encapsulates really where we see digital transformation. And we wouldn't use the words internally transformation. We just don't. It's like, how do we fix that? How do we drive that? Where do you want to go with that? When do we need to launch that? It's for us, we look at across all elements of the business, as I've just mentioned, whether it's warehouse operations, its capability, its scalability, its cost. For a multi-distributor warehouse approach, one warehouse is fine, bring on a second, and then try to serve customers out of that in a way that doesn't let them down from an SLA, from a fulfillment standpoint. It can be challenging. Vertical strategy, so new sites, how are we going to do it, how are we going to deliver, what's going to be the first number of sites, etc. And then adoption of new tech platforms. So we recognize that our email comms to our customers were really poor. So again, we said, how do we do it better? How do we make it more automated? So to take the load off our email marketing manager, but also to come out a lot cleverly, so to make it more contextual, more personalized. So again, that transformation for us is moving from one provider to Clavio, for example, right, and allowing that brilliant tool then to drive on. Again, I'll just repeat why we don't necessarily use transformation within the business. The word, it's something that all businesses should be constantly in. So I'm just going to take you very quickly through Wave OMS. So for us, the transformation that we had to bring our business through a complete rewrite of our fulfillment software. As I said, our orders doubled overnight. So on average, on an average day, busy day for us, we got 2,000 orders, average about 3.5 orders per item, 3.5 items per order. So we're sending out the best part of 7,000 to 7,500 items. Our warehouse works from 8:30 and we stop packing at 5. And we have to do that within a working day. And we have to get out 100% accurately, such that at 5 o'clock, all orders that come in before 5 o'clock will go the same day. And that's the way we do it. So when, as I mentioned before, when COVID hit, we found that we basically started to work all hours that God gave. Everybody was contributing, which is great because, as they should, I was down packing, Mick was down packing. There's no better way to shed a light on an area of business when we're down doing the packing, literally putting the tape on the boxes. So for us, we re-engineered our fulfillment software, and actually, as just purely coincidentally, once it was done, and 6 months later, a business came into us, reached out to us, and so it became very clear that COVID was here to stay. We had very traditional businesses or retailers in Ireland who had a warehouse function, and the warehouse function was typically involved in 3 elements. The warehouse was serving 3 elements of the business. Usually there was a wholesaler B2B, so they're potentially doing B2B sales, right? Or if you have a store network, your warehouse is usually involved in store replenishment. And then you would have e-com coming out the back of it. That's 3 very different fulfillment requirements. Because when you're doing your wholesale B2B, it could be pallet size, etc. You're picking 24 inners and outers and cartons, right? Whether store for replenishment, it could be the same. But typically it is different. E-com is incredibly difficult because instead of sending out a pallet to one store or to one customer or more, you're now basically packing a small thing into a box. And you could send out 7,500 items, for example, in one wholesale B2B order. But that's for us, that's 2,000 orders we have to send out during the day. So we had, but when COVID hit, one of our customers, Books Station, all the 17 stores on the east coast of in Books and Stationery around the east coast, and they came to us and said, look, you guys are involved in e-com for a while, can we see how you guys are doing fulfillment? And they came in and had a look around, and they looked at the 15-inch dashboard on the wall, which controls the warehouse. Literally, it was incredibly zen around the warehouse. To do 2,000 hours, we probably need about 13 people to do that. And they indicated, that, where's the software, where's it from? Well, look, it's ours internally, et cetera, et cetera. So they asked, well, look, would we sell it to them? And we kind of go, look, we're not interested, we're doing our own thing, we're cracking on. And then basically the magic words were, well, we'll pay for it. And we went, oh, shit, we'll pay for it, right? So we said we would do it because Mick and I always felt that the proprietary stack that we built to facilitate our industry, right, the automotive industry, heavy SKU, heavy volume, heavy complexity. To give you an example, we would probably if we send out 2,000 orders, half of that product is on our shelves, and the other half has to come in that day, right? So we've got a huge cross-stocking requirement on it as well. So ultimately, we went into it. We built and we commercialized, and we sent it. We got out there, and then when we sat down before we actually went with it, Mick and I basically went, like if we put this train on the tracks, there's no going back. Because that customer needs to be serviced, you need to increase the functionality, you need to grow the product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we thought long and hard. We said, look, we will. Let's do it. Let's crack on with it. And on that side, we're pursuing that side of the business quite heavy, et cetera. So I'll just take you through that very quickly. And then again, if there's any time, we can maybe some questions on anything. So it's an order fulfillment engine. Founded by the mixedgarage.com team. Everything that could go wrong in a warehouse, mistakes, we've hit it. We've hit every single hurdle, every hurdle. I've been packing at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes over the years, right? So every single hurdle we've hit. So we've kind of taken all that experience, distilled it into a very simple to follow process. It's developed 2 years of experience. Is built by fulfillment professionals. So when we and again, it's unique to us, but when we actually we think we have a new way, a new process, a new bit of tech to launch in Wave, we'll do that. The mixedgarage.com fulfillment warehouse is always on the beta version of Wave. So if we have something new, if we think we can shave off inches, Mick will slap Fitbits on the guys, check their tracking, how much time they walk in, etc., and how to cut that down. And we'll do that and we'll test that. So uniquely, we actually have a multi-million euro business, which is is constantly testing and Wave. So the product is basically it's a pick, sort, pack, and manage. So if you're a warehouse out there that is picking orders on a one-by-one basis, right? So let's say you're picking on, or on a small batch basis. So a lot of the warehouses we went into, they're either picking on an A4 sheet. So we've been into a warehouse where on a Monday morning, there's 2 reams, which is 1,000 pieces of paper printed out. And they're literally one at a time, go pick, go back, etc. Come back to. Or you pick on an iPad. And then we've seen innovation, which is they just transfer that single piece of paper to an iPad. And now you walk around. And for them, that was an innovation. So the fundamental crux of the system is that, let's say, for example, you're a mixed garage, right? And a very common product for us could be Castrol 525 litre, 2,000 orders on a Monday. Let's say the 300 orders has that single product in it. In the current very manual oriented environment, a picker will pick up that single A4 sheet and bring it to that bin 300 times to pick that product, right? Pick that product, which is a complete waste of time. What we do is we deconstruct all of our orders into a real-time pick list, right? So when our pickers and Wave is asked to pick that product, you literally brought to the bin, you're asked to pick 300, right? So we're picking in complete real time. And for us, when we're picking in the morning, on a busy morning, I said we've about 2,000 orders for the day. We'll have about 1,000 in stock. So we immediately release the orders that we send out, and we probably have 1,000 orders, 3.5 items, about 4,500 items picked within the first 90 minutes of the morning, right? And then that's the picking done for that time until new orders come in. And then the clever thing about it is that we actually bring it to a central sorting area. And so the question is typically asked is that when everything is picked, you need to sort it out. So we a very, very clever process that allows when you scan an item, it streams it to single item orders or multi-item orders. I'll reconstruct it back in the sort stage or the put wall stage. And so that's it. It's basically efficiency through picking and sorting and packing, and then it's bolted on to 7 or 8 couriers, which will automatically track and get out the door to customer. It's 100% accurate. So last summer we sent out 96,000 parcels for the GEA and the logistics, and we only got 2 wrong, and that was because the wrong barcode is on the product. So it's incredibly accurate. So we have customers that would be doing 800 orders a month, or customers doing 36,000 orders a month. It really depends where you come from. It's your pharmaceuticals, etc. Accuracy is important on that. So I know Janine's asked me to go along. We've got full integrations on marketplace, couriers, etc. And some of our customers, we only launched a year, and last year we served through the platform 786,000 orders. And this year we have the same amount of customer embedding again, and we'll probably do about 2.2 million orders through the platform this year. So that's Wave. But again, when you follow, I suppose the core message being when you follow digital transformation path, and if you arrive at a process that you think could be unique to you, there could be certain value in that bringing forward. And we certainly found value, and indeed to the extent that we launched a separate business off it.
Valerie is the programme chair for the BSc in Computing and Digital Media on the Galway campus of ATU. She is in the Department of Computing and Applied Physics, and her areas of interest include computer graphics, 3D game design and development, and complex problem solving. You're in for a real treat with this presentation. It really is going to be so interesting. I spoke to Valerie last week, and it was intriguing what she's doing these, so a real treat. So she's involved in promoting gender balance in computing and outreach activities that encourage second-level students to consider a future study and career path in the area. So welcome, Valerie. The title of her presentation is The Extended Mind in 3D. So she's going to take us off to another world, I think.
Hello, everybody. I'm a little bit shorter than the other speakers, I think. So it's great to be here in person. And I'd like to say thanks to Sharon for inviting me here, who I'll either blame or thank after this. And thanks to Janine, Laura, and Noreen, and all the team for organising this event. And thanks to everybody for coming and being here today. So, as an academic, predominantly as an educator in the area of 3D game development, my offering today comes from within this niche and probably limited perspective. So, while technology, particularly the ability to video call, share screens, and gather collectively through platforms such as Teams and Zoom, helped us to connect and continue working through the pandemic, the isolation, de-anchoring, and siloing effects of connecting remotely became apparent to most of us. Sorry. As social creatures, being with other people in the same place and time is essential to being what being human is. And it's on the basis on which our relationships are founded, built, and evolve. The COVID lockdown brought this into focus, albeit at a terrible price. So as a primate species, our brains evolved to traverse our perceived 3D spaces, paying attention to potential danger and how to optimize the spaces we inhabit. In the physical world, we have embodied experiences. For example, Pat mentioned it earlier. How many of you here remember where you were, what you were doing, and who you were with when you were told to go home in March of 2020 because we were entering the first lockdown? So, hands up, who remembers that? Okay, so that's an embodied experience that we've all had, albeit differently and separately for each of us. So we know what that means. So when we go to our technological systems, there's a lot of friction between our 2D technological systems and our 3D physical world space. We're highly sensitive to context and the surrounding environment. Perhaps some of this friction, and I'm getting into the realm of speculation here, echoes to the Cartesian paradigm to which we're very attached. The French philosopher and mathematician René Descartes, a 17th century, considered the father of modern philosophy by many, pondered the question, what do we know and how do we know it? And his mind-body dualism considers the body and mind as separate things, mind and matter. Many of you will be familiar with the very often quoted cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. But in this paradigm, the matter or the body seems to have been very much neglected in favor of the brain or the mind. So much of our current research focuses heavily on the brain and how to support its functioning as a locked-in, skull-bounded entity. In describing thinking and reasoning, analogies, metaphors, and comparisons have been restricted as brain-bounded, with the body, context, and surrounding environment largely ignored. Some examples of this in the research is the analogy of the brain as muscle, the idea that if we can just, apply ourselves, drill down, and grit it out, we can master our problems. The work of Carol Dweck and Angela Duckworth are examples of this research. Another one is the brain as a computer or system. So the work of Kahneman and Tversky, so Kahneman's thinking fast and slow, system 1, system 2, analogies of mindset. Another is the brain as an interface, which is a theory put forth by Donald Hoffman. However, other researchers, such as Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperberg, have pushed back on the notion that humans are poor at reasoning, arguing that the human brain evolved to solve social problems, and demonstrated that when the context is altered for the same task, moving from abstract to social, humans reason quite well. Sorry, I meant to change the slide, I got carried away. Okay, I'm on three, great, okay. The generation of knowledge is an ability currently still unique to humans. Many aspects of human knowledge and skill are intangible and often unconscious. The difference between knowing that and knowing how is very difficult to extricate. We know more than we can tell. Our current IT systems are repositories of information, not of skill, and that distinction is very significant. The theory of the extended mind, put forth in a paper back in 1998 by Andy Clark and David Chalmers, and kind of gained traction with the advent of the smartphone, has seen again another revival through a book published in 2021 by Annie Murphy-Paul. The extended mind theory argues that we are not bounded by skin and skull. Thinking and reasoning extends into the physical world. It proposes that objects in the external environment can be part of our cognitive process and in that way function as extensions of the mind itself. The theory of the extended mind offers a means of acknowledging the limits of our biological brain, but looks at how we can extend and transcend them. These act as resources, assisting the brain to overcome and overachieve. So these sources are, first of all, the body. We use body as part of our thinking process. So things like interoception, which is the idea of tapping into your internal resources. So right now I'm very aware of my heart pounding. That would be an example. Motions such as gesturing. Children use manipulatives like counting their fingers, fidgeting, for example. Another is the tools and devices that we use to offload our mental functions to. So, for example, probably not everybody here would be able to tell me or recall all the numbers that you've stored on your phone. That's a function you've offloaded to your device. The surrounding environment, which is very important because this can be a contributor or an impediment to cognition, depending on how it's set up. So I'm against hot desking, spoiler. We use our surrounding to set up cognitive hooks and cues that help us with recall and memory. And very importantly, this list is not exhaustive, but is other people. We offload our cognition to other people, so I'm doing it right now. When we meet people, we tell them our thought processes, we get feedback. If it's a good relationship, we can correct course if our thinking is a little bit skewed, and so on. Okay, so if we live in a 3D world, maybe we can look at our 3D, build 3D applications to examine some of the issues that I'm talking about here. So again, borrowing from the book, Annie Murphy-Paul's book, she talks about the brain as an orchestra conductor, or one I really like is brain as magpie. So a magpie will build with the resources it has in its surrounding, and these resources matter a lot in terms of how successful or not the magpie is. So if we're persuaded that there is a case for supporting the extended mind, then 3D solutions and new solutions and practices to think and work together may prove useful. Our world is complex, data is vast, and our expertise is niche. We can use VR systems to facilitate the identification of real problems to solve collectively and collaboratively, rather than building solutions and then searching for the problems they might solve. VR offers opportunities for problems that we can explore and see if we can generate outputs that's greater than the sum of the individual contributions. As humans, it's our tendency to share what we already know as a means to connect and avoid being deviant. We engage in self-silencing, contributing to consensus rather than raising questions. Alternative approaches to problem solving and consensus forming may be possible using strategies that have proven effective, such as the scientific method, peer review processes, the rules of various sports, computer game rules, and so forth. We have the option to explore these in VR. As discussed by Brenda earlier, one of the most exciting offerings of VR is the revival of a focus on learning by doing for the acquisition of skills. We are facing skills shortages in many critical areas. We are importing labour to fill these skills shortages and depriving other areas and brain draining those in order to fill this gap. VR offers safe spaces for practice-based skill acquisition and context-sensitive training. Okay, so kind of going to the two extremes. I'll take a utopian view of what VR might offer us, and then we'll look at a more negative, the more negative side. Probably it will be somewhere in the middle. The first thing is the opportunity to experiment, to try new things that are dangerous, risky, impossible. You can be anywhere and do anything, potentially. The social dimension. The ability to provide more presence, and particularly immersion, gives scope for team building. Allowing for alternate perspectives, so designing a system to avoid groupthink, in gender-free speech, and get back our agency and autonomy that much of social media has robbed from us. New experiences, to try new things, walk in the shoes of another, empathy building, get a perspective from the ground, from the people who are directly impacted. Health and well-being, and personalised AI-mediated services. So they are the ones that will, like your sat-nav getting to you here today, they'll correct course you if you go off course. And it's the same possibility here. Concerns is, of course, who guards the guardians, who owns these platforms. Shoshana Zuboff has a very interesting book on surveillance capitalism, which raises things like privacy issues, our exposure to being manipulated, unequal access, so again, like the magpie, it depends on the resources you have to go in there. The possibility for escapism, and we all go to Westworld and forget about this one. Unintended consequences, so we can create terrible beauties, as we know, as a species. So, I'm almost there. I'm starting to feel really good now and happy and getting to the end of this. So I'll probably mess it up now at the very last one. But anyway, so there are some positives coming down the track. So the games tax credit, which came into effect at the latter part of last year, will hopefully incentivize growth in this space. Governance of 3D spaces will be an issue and of increasing concern, as will interoperability and the ability to move between different 3D spaces. This is issues we've faced before. The problems we face are complex, require collective efforts from educational institutions, the private sector and government working together. It's not a good idea for any of us to do this alone. America is better at this than Europe. The internet, the moon landing, were joint efforts between different stakeholders with a shared view. Perhaps this is an opportunity for big tech that's bold, ambitious and positively future-focused for us in Europe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry. That was absolutely fascinating. So Jane, just to introduce Jane and Miles, so they're from Candor Accountants. They're a Galway-based accountancy agency. They're a very technology-focused accountancy group, and they're experts, according to your website, in cloud technology and artificial intelligence. Miles, as I understand it, is a whiz in new systems and performance analysis. And Jane is a fellow and associate of the Chartered Certificate Accountants of Ireland. Yeah. So really, without further ado, they're going to talk about digital accountancy and digital transformation. So I'd like to welcome Jane and Miles.
Thank you, Janine and Seamus, for inviting us here today to talk about our digital journey in accountancy. Myself and Miles here, as Janine says, we are in charge of modernising and developing the bookkeeping and the business advisory services that we offer at Candor. Now, our vision would be to try to break down that stereotypical vision that you have of accountants in the back office of a company, number crunching for revenue, We really want to break through that completely and make you think more that we are now utilising as much technology as we can to save our time and to use our time in the more valuable service of analysing and interpreting the data that we have to help our clients or to run their business more effectively. Now, I'm going to give an overview of just the changes that I've seen throughout my career. My colleague here, Miles, is going to focus more on what we've done at Candor, the software and the processes that we've introduced. And he's going to give you a couple of real-life examples to demonstrate just how valuable the digital software has made our accountancy service. So just taking you back, okay, I've been around for about 30 years in accountancy practice, and the picture there would be very typical of where I started, really. We did have computers 30 years ago, but as you can see, very office-bound there, desk-bound, with lots of paperwork all around me. And really back in the early 90s, we were literally typing everything into the computer, okay? Very labour-intensive, very error-prone, and it took up a huge amount of our time. And the kind of sad thing when I look back over 30 years is that for about 20 years, at least 20 years at that time, things really didn't change a whole lot. I mean, yes, technology improved, but our processes didn't really change. We were still literally typing in things, reconciling things, ticking things, and that's where we get this boring accountant's kind of viewpoint from. Now, since about 2015 onwards, and it was before COVID really, it wasn't just COVID, right? Before then, we started to see the emergence of clever accountancy software. Certainly when you look over to the UK, I would say the UK are possibly maybe 5 years ahead of us. Now, we're catching up, but I would say they're about 5 years ahead of us. And we could see some of this clever technology coming. And with the emergence then of the cloud, that has freed us up to the point now that this is more like Miles's desk here. There's absolutely nothing on Miles's desk apart from the computer. In fact, Miles isn't even at the desk, as we can see, because he's probably in the boardroom serving our clients better because he's been freed up from churning paperwork. Okay? So, I suppose, when we talk about in accountancy practice and Candor in particular, what has been driving us to make these changes? Well, we actually sat down with some of our senior staff and asked them, what is it about accountancy? And I have young kids who are now undergraduates, and they say, "My mom, why would you ever want to be an accountant?" Right? And actually, part of the reason why we have moved so much is because we want to improve the practice and our own self-development. Most good accountants are good because they want to serve their clients, okay? And we want to improve the way we do that. And therefore, we are restricted by time, and I think Kieran touched on this, so we want to make the most of our time to provide the best quality service that we can. And that is one driver. The other thing is that social media and TV and everything has shown our clients all the software that apparently can just magically churn out all your figures. Well, it's not really like that in reality. Yes, software will help us do our job, but we still need to interpret the information. So we need to stay on top of the technology to make sure we can explain to clients, look, this is what the machine can do, this is what the software does, and this is what we do. The other aspect to this, and again, if you cast your eye across the water to the UK, you'll see that there's a lot more digitalisation with revenue and a lot more than any compliance. The UK government has brought in making tax digital. And what that means is that now, instead of us filling out VAT returns or PAYE returns, they're actually logging into our live data and pulling it up to show the tax liabilities. Now, we're not there yet in Ireland, but you can bet that that's where we're going. Okay, so, again, being a practice then, you need to stay on top of it. I mean, a small example happened about 4 years ago in 2019 when the whole PAYE system became modernised. They called it PAYE modernisation. And now it means that every time we process payroll, we're sending that information directly into the revenue systems. So, I mean, you can imagine that accuracy is kind of important when you're sending information into revenue. And because they spend more and more of their time just sifting through this information and selecting cases for audit on the basis of it. So, as an accountancy practice, it became really essential that we got on top of our processes. The other issue we're really having at the moment is staff. Staff is a problem in any industry in Ireland at the moment. And we need to do the most to attract new students in and also to retain them in the profession. And we need to make the job as interesting as possible. Okay, so none of us want to be churning figures. Like when I started, I would have spent a year writing up ledgers and learning how to do a bank reconciliation. Thankfully, those days have kind of gone with the help of software. And of course, then the other driver for change is always going to be competition. You look across, your clients look across and see, well, Joe Blogs down the road is getting all this fancy information and fancy reports from systems, and I'm not getting any of that. You know, we have to be able to offer a high standard to our clients these days. And there's also the price point as well. I mean, the reality is we don't even have to be at our desks anymore. The data is all digital. It could be shipped off to India and processed in India. And that is the future of bulky data, really. It's not going to be done in Ireland anymore. It's going to be done somewhere else. But that's why we need people now to interpret and analyse and communicate with our clients. So what difficulties are we facing? This is actually, this survey was done by IFAC accountants. And I really was delighted to hear that ATU are bringing in these digital accountancy courses, because time is our most valuable resource in any accountancy practice. And we just don't have time to learn the basics anymore. We need help from the colleges. And the more relevant the degree courses are, both at undergraduate and postgraduate level, the more it's going to help us out in the long term. Our graduates can now teach us things that we haven't, we don't really know half of what's out there, so it's great to have that knowledge coming through from the colleges. Encouraging client buying into this digitalization is also a problem for us. But again, if you are helping us by teaching the basics to the business entrepreneurs of the future, well, look, that's going to help us in our path. So look, I'm going to hand over to Miles now to give you a more detailed picture of what we're doing at Candor.
Thanks, Jane. So I suppose I'm going to talk to you kind of about cloud accounting today, and I suppose its impact on what we do, what our clients do, and what graduates of the future need to know, and so they can position themselves in a good position to get a graduate role come the end of their course. So here's an overview. So what we're going to look at is the cloud accounting versus the traditional desktop accounting. We're also going to look at how a client's adapted. We're going to look at a real-life example of how they've harnessed the real data that they have at their disposal. Then what we're going to look at just briefly is what's around the corner, and then what does a graduate need to do to position themselves well going forward. So before we look forward, let's look briefly on back the way. So what did we do before the digital age? So as you can see, a lot of manual data entry, a lot of paper. Okay, so I think, and COVID probably accelerated this process for our firm in particular, but we've reduced our paper use tenfold in the last 3 to 4 years, and technology is the main reason. So again, what we're trying to get away from is the shoebox client like we're seeing there, so the bundle of receipts, because as James touched on earlier on, that's not attractive to anyone, even from an accountant point of view. So I suppose the key differences or benefits of cloud accounting versus the traditional desktop accounting, main one is multi-users and its accessibility. So if you're on holidays in Barbados, you can log on to your accounting software. Not that anyone will, but it's an option, okay? I suppose the kind of market leaders, Xero, QuickBooks, Sage, they don't claim to have all the answers to your needs. So if you have inventory that you need to record and you need to see, okay, on my location, several locations, what do I have on hand? That's not their job. What they will then offer is third parties to do that for you. So basically, I think there's over 1,000 integrations, and some of them will solve your problem, some of them won't. But if you spend long enough, I suppose, researching what your organisation needs, you'll probably find it. And again, that will couple in with your accounting software to bring it all nicely together. The kind of other main benefit from an accounting point of view is that we can log on at the same time you log on, and we can work on the same data as you can. So whereas previous to this, we were relying on client backups, and then they couldn't work on their system, etc. So it's accelerated the whole process from us from an account preparation point of view. Here's an example of an e-commerce business that we deal with. And this kind of an app map to kind of demonstrate their finance function. So as you can see at the core of everything, Xero is the software. Now that could be QuickBooks Online, could be Sage, but for this client in particular it was Xero. So if we look at the left-hand corner, or no, sorry, your right-hand corner, you have their banking feed. So we're in the open banking era at the moment, and basically your transactions come in live into this software for either yourself or your accountant, whoever's role it is to reconcile your bank transactions. Then your HubDoc, which is a software which we use to analyze purchase invoices. So basically what that does, it gets away from the paper manual data entry, and it basically extracts your date, your supplier, your VAT rates, your VAT amounts that you need to reclaim. And basically it has this OCI technology that if you had this invoice month in, month out, it'll basically recall the last transaction that you entered it as. So it reduces your time spent on laborious bookkeeping tenfold. Next thing then is, say, for your sales. So for this e-commerce client, they have Shopify, but you might be a restaurant, you might have another till system that feeds into Xero. So they basically feed in the sales in live time. So again, we're eliminating the human role as such, but it's allowing us to spend time on things that are more valuable and more important. And then lastly, payroll. So again, there's integrations from your payroll software that feed into your accounting software. So as you can see, it's now a very integrated world. Rather than having individuals responsible for everything and then trying to pull it together, it accelerates the process much quicker. So I suppose with all these integrations and everything, what does that do for a client? So this is an example of a client who basically was using the Shopify information, and we were then able to manipulate it and kind of give him insights into his own business. So if you see there, I've highlighted they had 900 odd people who had reached the checkout. Only about 500 or so had actually converted into sales. So that's about 40% that were unsecured sales, okay? So what they done, and they actually created a KPI on a weekly basis for this. So they targeted those customers, because if you know you've entered your date and or your address and your phone number and everything, so on a Monday morning they'd have their admin staff who wouldn't necessarily be, you know, sales orientated, but they were just ringing up, cold calling, and they were seeing up to 40% of a conversion rate on those sales alone. So all of a sudden, a 60% conversion rate's gone up to a 75% conversion rate by using real-time data at any given time, okay? So that's kind of a perfect example of okay, we know you know how to use the software, but can you tell me what the figures mean and how can we use that to put action into place into our business? Here's another client who I suppose shows the kind of shift in attitudes clients have now. I suppose accountants were maybe seen as a once-a-year visit and you get bad news and then you'd see them again the following year, whereas this client came to us and they were growing rapidly and they were kind of on the wave of a COVID bounce, if you want to call it that. So to sustain that, they invested a lot into their infrastructure and they basically hired a significant amount of staff, increased their number of vehicles on the road, and they were hoping that that would then allow them to support the future sales. But that didn't materialise for them. So then they came to us and they said, look, kind of don't know where I'm at the moment. And as you can see there, they had a net profit of minus 22%. So we sat down with them and we said, okay, well, we have the live data now and we can say, right, well, what are your overheads? So we've seen their labour 25%. We said that's a huge overhead, so maybe we can do something about that. Now, the unfortunate scenario is that you have to let go of staff, but there wouldn't be a business there in 12 months if he didn't do this kind of thing. So between that or reducing his motor fleet down to a sustainable level allowed him to reduce his distribution costs down to 13%. So his gross profit there went from 23 to 36%, and based on the live real data that he could actually form his decision making based on that. So historically, the client would have came to us at the end of the year, we would have told him he made a loss, but he wouldn't have been able to do a huge amount about that. Whereas we're seeing our role kind of more focused on aiding the decision makers in the business to execute and increase their profitability. Okay? So I suppose then, what's next? Okay, so we recently attended as a firm a conference in the UK, and it was basically about the digitization of the accounting industry. So basically there was the market leaders there, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Sage, and everyone else. So they basically said, where would accountants be in 10 years' time? So if we look at this kind of as a roadmap, we're currently in the open banking era, if you want to call it that. So that kind of alludes back to the previous slide of the apps all coming together as the integration. So we're kind of only in the initial stages of that. Whereas where they see it going is in 5 to 10 years' time that we'll be entering the open finance era, and that will basically be, to give you an example, if you're going into your bank manager today, you're probably ringing them actually because they're probably not there, but your next call then would be to ring the accountant and say they need up-to-date accounts. What do I need to give you in terms of information to get the accounts up to date? Whereas we're going to get to a stage where the accountant isn't involved in that role. They may be involved in bringing accounts up to date, etc., but the bank manager is going to have real data available to him to execute that loan process much quicker. That will be the same for mortgage, pensions, etc. So that's where they kind of see things going. Then the open data will be just in terms of not only businesses, but people's day-to-day expenditure, just going to be so much more automated. So that's basically the evolution that we can see in the next 10 years. So I suppose being at ATU today, what do tomorrow's graduates need to know? Okay, so I suppose leaning on the stereotype that Jane painted about accountants, we're not the most exciting bunch, but I suppose that kind of feeds into some prospective students. They might say, okay, well, I need to be this because I want to be an accountant. So here's a few skills on the left, what you think that we might be looking for. So you need to have expert accounting knowledge. You need to be proficient in Excel and other Microsoft Office packages because everyone has that on their CV. Whether they are or not, that's anyone's guess. But these are just things that, you know, keep you in the crowd. They don't actually put you out of the crowd and get you into that 5% where you want to get that job. So what we actually look for is a good communicator. So verbally, can you communicate well face-to-face and within teams? Electronically, so we don't like to see, say, what you type on WhatsApp filter through to your emails. And that's very important because you know, there's a letterhead going with our firm in an email, so we try and keep that as formal as we can. We need you to be an expert, not proficient, an expert in Excel. Now, again, what I'd say by expert is you need to have an interest. You need to be, I suppose, willing to embrace, because it's all about manipulating information to give clients value. So, you know, pivot tables, VLOOKUP, sum ifs, they're all common language for a lot of people here, but for students, they might never have heard of them. Now, that's why, I suppose, courses like we're hearing with the digital accounting course that's coming on with ATU, that's music to our ears, because we don't want to have to sit down and show someone how to do, you know, very basic functions on Excel, but it's because they've never been shown them. So again, we couldn't encourage that enough. And then the other, I suppose, traits we look for, and contrary to belief, we are exciting people, so outgoing personalities, leadership, so you need to know how to, I suppose, manage people as well as communicate with them, and we like to see problem-solving attitude. So there's none of this I can't do, it's how do we do, I suppose, to get away from that kind of mentality. And then risk takers, so I suppose I shouldn't disclose this, but if you're in a meeting with a client, sometimes you need to wing it, okay? If you don't know the answer, you need to wing it and just paint a good picture that you know what you're talking about, like I've just done. So yeah, basically, they're just a few kind of tips. If I was a graduate and in 4 years' time or whenever you might graduate, those kind of things would put you in that one or top cohort of candidates for any role. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? Or
John Gallagher is our final speaker. He is the head of accelerated growth for the UK and Ireland for Google. His topic title for this presentation is Bridging the Gap, Transforming Irish Businesses Through Digital. John is another Castlebar native, am I right, John? Yes. So that's the third Mayo man we have on this morning. I mean, there might be more that, you know, I don't know. I didn't get all of the background information on everybody, but so the Mayo natives are fairly contributing to digital transformation in the region and in the nation. Okay, so John has been in Google for over 12 years, and he's currently head of accelerated growth, as I said, working with global brands such as Revolut, Gymshark, and Wayflare, to name just a few. And he develops their digital strategy and accelerates their growth online. So we're really interested to hear what John has to say about what's happening next, and you know, after the aftershock. And I'm sure you're constantly updating your technologies, but we're really interested to hear what you've got to say and how you're going to help us identify the future trends. Thank you, John.
Thanks a million. Afternoon, everybody. Fantastic to be here. Really appreciate the work that's being done, and I absolutely love the topic. Couldn't be more apt. I was delighted to see it. I'll be talking a lot around the topic that I'll be talking about today, the idea of bridging the gap. And transforming Irish businesses through digital, as fancy as it sounds, is actually, it's very relevant and it's quite up to date for what we're going through at the moment, because what I'm going to talk about today is based on a piece of research that Google has done in partnership with Enterprise Ireland and the local Enterprise Office, which was founded in a survey of 1,000 Irish SMEs that took place at the end of December 2021. So hopefully very relevant. And as a result, we've pulled together a resource of trainings and multiple different resources with Enterprise Ireland online through I'm going to use some time to pitch our new platform, You're the Business. You may have seen some of the external advertising for part of this, which is an online initiative across each of these three pillars that's available to businesses that offers training and supports across each of these three areas: get online, grow online, and going global. It's about a week's worth of information, and I've tried to bring it down to about 30 minutes. And I got about 45 slides, which is a cardinal sin to try and get through in 30 minutes. But I'll try and make it as informative, and I hope it's really, really useful as we go along and relevant. But what I will reiterate is this offering, g.co/you're the business, is available afterwards for anybody here, whether you're a business, whether you've got clients, whether you're a student. There's a lot of rich information full of free resource for anybody here to use. So if there's something in particular that stands out, please grab me afterwards or email me, but also jump online and you can understand it in a bit more detail. So today, what I wanted to keep the focus on was three main areas. Firstly, this idea of bridging the digital divide and explaining what exactly that is. Again, as the focus is digital disruption and the idea of the aftershock, the point around what we're seeing from a digital divide perspective is consumers are more connected than they ever have been, particularly in Ireland. We're some of the most advanced consumers globally and within Europe. But from a business perspective, we're not necessarily seeing some of the same innovation, or we're not necessarily reflecting our consumer base in the same way. So we see a pretty clear digital divide in terms of what our consumers are doing online in Ireland versus what some SMEs are potentially doing. Then we're going to delve a small bit more into two specific topics, one of them being just growing online and the opportunity for thinking about how we can expand our footprint online as businesses, and then potentially going global. For anybody who's in that space that you are thinking about exporting abroad, I want to take 5 or 10 minutes at the end to discuss some opportunities to do so, and again, through some free resources. So to understand what we mean by that idea of what is the digital divide and bridging the gap, I want to take a minute, first of all, to understand the online consumers and see what it is specifically that they're doing on a daily basis. And some of these stats will be of no surprise to people, some maybe. But one of the more stark and clear stats that we're seeing that many of us may prescribe to as well is we have never been more connected. 90% of Irish people are online. And those who are online, 94% of them are online daily. And within that bracket, we're seeing on average people spend over 9 hours connected. And when you think that's the average number, there's two extremes either side of this. I am firmly in that average bucket, if not probably higher. I have had to go through the process of limiting some of the apps on my phone, as some of you may have had to do as well. But the reality is, versus 5, 10, even 15 years ago, this is continuing to grow, and businesses need to shape to react to this new reality. Thinking about those consumers then that are online, and thinking not just about businesses that are solely online, whether you're a service business or you're just an offline, you have an offline presence, a restaurant, a cafe, something like that. Regardless, online is the first place people are looking for information. So over 40% of people who find information online, firstly, expect to be able to go to a website. And over 86% of consumers in Europe expect to be able to get in contact with a business service that's online. I appreciate some of these things might sound basic, but the reality is a lot of these are big gaps in terms of what consumers are expecting versus what businesses are offering. If we jump into more specifically the e-commerce space, then this is one that's significantly growing, both in Ireland and Europe naturally. In 2022, we expected to see over €6 billion worth of revenue in the e-commerce market alone. Some of the standout stats here for me, the two biggest takeaways are that 49% of Irish consumers do most of their online shopping with SMEs, which I think is encouraging. This is growing post-Brexit as well. It's not necessarily everybody's going to Amazon and doing all their shopping in one go. There's a significant portion of the market that's focused on purchasing from Irish SMEs. And on our topic of the aftershock and digital disruption, almost 70% of Irish consumers do more shopping online now than they did pre-pandemic, which again, I think many of us may be able to relate to. And we saw the most significant wave of digitization over the last 2 years in terms of businesses and consumers moving online than ever before from a Google perspective. So everything is heading in the one direction. When we talk specifically then about, okay, that's the consumers, what are businesses doing to react to this, or what is the reality? So as part of this research, firstly, we found that over half of Irish small and medium enterprises believe that they could double their profits or double their turnover, and their profitability with an investment in digital skills. However, less than 50% of Irish SMEs have invested any time into digital skills training. The most standout data point for me from this piece of research that was done, and it was done in conjunction with Amoric Research. You can also search that afterwards if it's of interest. It's a fully published report. There's some very interesting insights in it. But for almost half of Irish SMEs don't actually have their own website. And when you compare this to the EU average of 23%, again, it's a pretty stark number. And we're talking specifically about a website, not necessarily a social media presence. I get in the majority of instances, most people may have a Facebook page, an Instagram page. The reality is consumers expect at least a website presence in addition to that, if not more. So that's a bit around what consumers are doing online and where the gap is from a business perspective. I want to touch as well on deep diving a small bit more into that audience and the difference, I guess, in the consumer purchase path from what it was, again, 10 to 15 years ago versus what it is now online and the level of complexity that we're now dealing with. So if you take it at a very basic level, if we take it back to when purchases almost fully happened offline, it was a pretty linear arrangement of interest, think, do. I'm either interested in something or something sparks my interest. I think about it a bit and I go and do it. If you take the simple example of booking a holiday, I was even just thinking, as a teenager, one of my favourite moments was when we got the Falcon Holidays brochure that came into the house and I got to swipe through it, or the Smith's catalogue, which still comes. But you'd pick your holiday or you'd go to the travel agents and you'd have a discussion and you'd be informed and you'd make your decision. And that was kind of it, in a way. When you think about the level of complexity that has been introduced to that process now, by the introduction of what's happening online, we have a considerably more informed consumer, which means there's a much higher requirement from a business, both in terms of their offering, be they selling goods or services. Just in that interest section, it's no longer just a point of like, okay, I'm interested in something. I now go down through the process of starting to search for a solution myself, educating myself. I go through the process of visiting other businesses online, which I can now do, watching videos online. Like if you think about a simple example of, buying a pair of football boots for your son or daughter or for yourself, you're now going through a process of, okay, what would I like? I'll probably go and look at about 15 different reviews online. I'll then read up on a blog on whatever pair of boots. I'll go on YouTube and I'll look if somebody has done a particular review about each of those. And then by the time I'm either getting in store or I'm making the purchase online, I'm pretty much an expert myself. So us as businesses need to, the ones that win, I think, are the ones that aren't put off by this level of complexity and data. It's the ones that use it in their favour that are the ones to stand to make most of the opportunity of this considerably more informed consumer. So what do I mean by that? There's so many useful data points that we can leverage now as businesses to understand more about who may be more suitable to you as a business than somebody else. This level of data is available if you are in the process of advertising online. If you've got a Facebook page, if you've got an Instagram page, you can get to an extent a certain level of this data, again, which didn't exist previously. You can identify things about your customers' demographics, their marital status, their earnings, their hobbies, their interests. I know this can be overwhelming to think that there's level of data exists about us online, but from a business perspective, using that in your favor can be hugely beneficial. If we think about the example again of a travel agent or you're booking a holiday, let's imagine that I own a travel agent in the Main Street Castlebar. Two individuals come to the front door of that travel agent, but I've only got time to speak to one of them. On the face of it, they look the exact same. I'd imagine that there's the same value to me. I just pick one, we sit, we have a discussion, and they book a holiday. Or let's imagine they book a flight to London for a weekend. If we layer on the level of data that's available online to both of those individuals, I can automatically know that one of those people may have a family of 4, that they may have been researching holidays online for the last 6 months, that they may have certain interests about certain topics or about certain countries that are most interesting to them. So I can make a more informed decision that, okay, this individual actually may be worth more to me or my business, and that I should look at targeting them specifically rather than the other. So understanding what people are doing online and what information is available to us to target them more effectively. And again, how we can do that already, for those of you that either have a Facebook presence or are familiar with any other social media platforms, there's a huge depth of information in using social insights to understand a small bit more about your audience, just from a basic demographics perspective. And we'll also talk a small bit more around specifically free resources and free tools. Google Trends is a tool that you probably hear about once a year when everyone does, the top rising searches, and you'll hear it on Today FM, or there's a funny news article talking about the rising queries that are happening on Google within Ireland. The reality is there's a huge amount of useful in-depth information there that can be extremely useful to informing either your online or your offline strategy. If we take the example of exploring on Google Trends, the search query term, just pop in sports equipment. You can look at the last 12-month query volume data across that individual search query. We can look at the breakdown of the cities and the towns across Ireland where we're seeing the highest growth or the highest interest for a particular sales query. And then within that, we can see the biggest standout topics or related queries that are connected to that particular business area. So when you look at the example of sports equipment, you can then see, well, actually, let's say I own a sports equipment store, or let's say I'm Pat and I'm thinking about expanding my product lines through Elvery's, thinking about what are some of the rising queries that people are searching. Hoka running shoes, for example, ones that I wasn't actually familiar with myself, but 120%, 140% increase in the last year in individuals that are searching for that. So it's not all just about, okay, how do I take this and run with it online? It can also inform business strategy. It can inform particular product lines that you might want to consider, or areas for investment across different towns, different regions, let's say. Okay, so that's understanding the space, the landscape a small bit, and just setting the scene for what consumers are doing and where the divide is from a business perspective. I want to take a bit more time as well to talk specifically about how we can grow further online. How do we capture some of that opportunity? And understanding search in particular. So delving specifically into what we can do on Google. So there are 3 ways which you can be found on Google. So there's organic search, there's paid search, and there's a Google business profile. And I'm not going to make this a pitch, so we're not going to talk too much about paid search. We're going to focus on stuff that's free and available for people to use, and try and give you a better understanding of the importance of being there and showing up, because in reality, everything that we're going to talk about is your digital shopfront. Take whatever you're doing offline and apply this to how you would want to represent your business online as effectively as possible, considering the reality that 95% of Irish people are online. And that is 90% of Irish people are online. And that in itself is a reason to understand why search is important, but out of that 90%, 95% will use Google to search a query online. It's the largest search engine in the world. The second largest is YouTube. So whilst there is always these individual paths of understanding how people connect online, the reality is there's a starting point for every discussion or conversation, and in a lot of instances, it begins with the search query. And missing out on that opportunity is a significant lost opportunity in a nutshell, because if you're not showing up in that query, or you're not showing up in that consumer purchase path, you've lost your opportunity from the off just by not being there. So for those of you that, I'm hopeful that many will be familiar with what this looks like, but to break down exactly what's happening within a search result and understanding the anatomy, I guess, of a search page for a Google query, the first thing that you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen here are the sponsored ads. These are all paid for search results. So these are ads. First of all, the way that the Google business model works is, for every search query that's inputted into Google, a dynamic auction runs in the background where multiple businesses will auction against each other to show up for a top query term as an ad, to then try and get your attention to click through to the website to then complete a purchase online. That's in a nutshell what's happening when you see a Google search result with an ad beside it, is that a business is looking to bring you through their purchase funnel to get you online. You'll also see, which has been introduced in the last few years, hopefully a shopping ad, which many of us may use for our browsing. I know I absolutely love it now for doing a quick swipe of checking the price if I'm getting value in a shop or something like that, just to browse through the Google shopping ad. Again, that's also a paid for resource, so it's something that you can do through Google Ads, and you can quite easily and quickly set up these campaigns to promote your businesses on certain sub-keywords or using certain products. But then we also have our natural organic search results. So the one on the bottom is a search result that's taken from your website. Our aim is to take as much of the data and information globally, make it useful for end consumers. So we will run multiple back-end scripts from an SEO perspective, and we will base our rankings in the organic query results based on that and order them on the individual pages. But then something that I feel is very underutilized and some may or may not be aware of is Google Business Profiles, which again is another free offering, which creates a very data and image-rich information page within the search panel specifically for business profiles, which gives you the opportunity to kind of create that digital storefront. So how can I bring through all of that information around where my business is located, some of the images around from my store, some of the reviews that I'm getting, and the likes. This is the specific broken down version. You can see on the left-hand side whether you're searching on desktop or whether you're searching on mobile. This is what it will look like on basic Google search. And the level of information and data is pretty significant. It gives you the opportunity to call the business directly, get directions, gives you the chance to open or to list your opening hours, things like that. And one of the hangovers I would say that we have seen from a COVID perspective and what has happened when opening hours were kind of all over the place was people might have had like a 10 to 2 on a Tuesday and a 4 to 7 on a Saturday and this business is currently closed or this business is temporarily closed forever. It's a good reflection when you search online, and I know myself when I come home, one of the first things I'll do is search like new cafes in town or new restaurants. I expect that page to be updated with fresh and clear information. I expect the opening hours to be correct. I expect you to have new photos with your new menu, and that's the reality of what the online consumer expects. So that really is your first port of call for representing your business effectively. And similarly on maps, like you'll start, particularly for people that are visiting an area that may not be familiar with you previously, this is your opportunity to get your reviews in, to show where you are, and do it all for free. But the richness behind what exists within the Google profile, the Google Business Profile, is, I think, underrated or in some instances not necessarily known of. So across the board, it can become a communication panel for how you interact with customers. So first of all, you have the opportunity to reply to your reviews, to update your opening hours, things like that, adding your regular photos, posting business updates, taking bookings is a really big one. There's a high expectation from consumers to be able to connect with you as a business through the Google Business Profile, but also to take bookings, and also adding a chat button. You have the opportunity to interact with customers instantly and automatically just by making a search for your business and connecting with you through that interface, rather than having to go onto your website, search contact us, connect with us, and then start an email thread over and back. Gives you the opportunity for an instantaneous connection with the consumer. Again, just reiterating why this is important. It's in the data, it's in the numbers. Some of these numbers are slightly older, but they're even bigger now than they would have been in 2020, 2021. So first of all, 70% of consumers use search result information to find a physical store. So as much as I'm talking about the online consumer and being online, everything online can move to offline. Every part of the journey can be intertwined. The reality is it starts online and potentially moves offline. At the beginning of 2020, by the end of 2022, we saw a 400% increase in query terms around open near me. So that move towards localization, individuals that want to take online information to find local information quickly. And we also saw a 100% growth in Google Maps searches for shopping near me. So that move to the expectant consumer who might find something that they like online, but they want to be able to find it locally right now, or they want to be able to try it on today. They don't want to go through the process of a 5-day turnaround of buying it, getting it, returning it anymore. So that's a bit more around how we can leverage some free tools to grow online. I want to jump a bit more specifically into specifically people that are your business itself, websites, whether you've got a website or whether you've got an online store, being aware of the importance of not just having that. One thing is visibility, so getting online is the most important thing, but growing online and doing it in the right way and thinking about what your consumers expect is also significantly important. And whether this is a service industry, whether it's an accountancy website or whether it's a restaurant or whether it's an e-commerce store, the expectation of a consumer to get through to your website, they don't want to wait. If you're going to click through on your mobile and you're waiting for 3 seconds, you're going to bounce. most of us know that. There can be a significant correlation, and you see multinational companies like Amazon will spend millions and millions of dollars to reduce their load time on their app by fractions of a second, 0.1, 0.2 of a second, because it has a naturally significant increase in conversion rates. So this is a simple tool that can be used, page speeds, insight. You just input your website, get a quick understanding of things like, okay, how long does it take for text to appear on my website? How long does it take for the website to become interactive? And we'll score you an overall performance rating, give you clear indication that you can go back to your web developer and say, okay, X, Y, and Z needs to be fixed. All of this information, again, is available on the You're the Business website, so I'll share that around afterwards. And then for those that have a specific store presence, we also offer this service through g.co/growmystore, which gives you a specific assessment on your website, consumer insights, and solution suggestions for your website to improve the conversion ability, I guess, for want of a better word, or the conversion rate of an online store based on industry best practice. And again, it's a simple matter of popping on to g.co/growmystore, entering your website name, and getting all of that information back. You'll get indication on how you should be sorting and presenting your product information, your store details, personalization, and given further tips on how you can make your shopping experience, your basket experience, more frictionless based on best-in-class design online. And then just to touch on one example of a business that I'm sure majority of you may be familiar with. It's a company that we worked with on the Accelerated Growth team a couple of years ago, who saw this simple, the perceived simple solution of a Google Business Profile significantly accelerate their business. So Gym Plus Coffee was coming to the crest of a wave, I think, as part of COVID kicked off and as lockdown hit. They had opened, I think, maybe their 5th or 6th store. All stores were closed, and they needed to pivot to understand how they can react to the new type of consumer behavior. They hadn't previously got a business profile, a Google My Business profile. They implemented it pretty quickly and soon found that they were building a community through that. They were interacting with their customers on a regular basis who may have previously purchased from the store, now needed to return or wanted to figure something out on their website. And just by integrating the Google My Business profile, they saw more sales in the period after lockdown when all their stores were closed than they had when their stores were open. So it quickly became a pivot from offline to online, just through that simple reaction to how consumers were acting online. Okay, so that's a lot to take in on growing online. And again, all of these points are covered through separate modules on the You're the Business profile. We'll do 40-minute trainings, up to an hour and a half trainings to take you through one specific area if you're finding it interesting. But I also wanted to touch briefly on going global because this is an area that is, I think, one we don't speak about a huge amount. It's of significant growing importance, and it's more accessible than the majority of Irish businesses realise. Again, particularly in the wake of what has happened with Brexit. But the EU as a community and even global commerce has become significantly frictionless and more borderless than ever before. So there's two areas I want to touch on within this, and the first is finding new markets. So a couple of, again, just touching on the data around this, a couple of points that we've seen is that firstly, the cross-border e-commerce in Europe is growing around twice as fast as domestic markets. And this is true for pretty much all of the EU average. So whilst we might see standard enough e-commerce growth within Ireland as a base of 5 to 6 million people, you'll most likely see twice that growth if you consider international markets. And the reality is also that 71% of European consumers are already shopping cross-border. And I would imagine that the majority of us in the room that have done any purchasing online, be that from an e-commerce store or from a service provider, have done the same. Out of interest, I'm sure everyone is familiar with Booking.com. I may have purchased from Booking.com. Is anybody familiar with where they're from? The country they're from? Holland, yeah. So they're a Dutch company. Which is something that the majority of us, I think, may not have ever known, but also don't care, because we don't need to care. They are the example, the definition of a borderless company. Nobody really needs to know where they're from, because their offering is defined to us as users in Ireland. And as long as you're doing that correctly, you have the opportunity to be hopefully the next booking.com. I'm sure we'd all like to be, but it's an example of how we can leverage that borderless opportunity. And a small bit more on the data around here. So 66% of e-commerce businesses say the cross-border sales account for almost a third of their annual revenue on average. So once it is done correctly, it's pretty beneficial, and it quickly becomes one of the significant revenue drivers within a business. Irish exports have exceeded 165 billion in 2021, which is an all-time high for Ireland. And as I said already, 71% of consumers are already shopping cross-border. So the precedent is set up. Multiple businesses have done it. The path to market has never been easier or clearer, particularly if you're an online-focused business. So again, I want to touch on another free resource. This is the last one, I promise. So it's Google Market Finder, g.co/Market Finder. And the point of this is, again, very similar. You can input your website directly into Market Finder, and it will spit out a huge range of data around finding new markets, giving you the ability to explore more in-depth data, operations and marketing within each of those individual countries. You can get an idea of who consumers are within particular countries and areas, the strengths of the competition within a particular market, how you get there, either logistically or from a translations perspective or a customer service perspective, and the potential size of that market. Again, you just link, you enter your business information, link it through, fill out a few questions, and you're given 3 areas of insight. And I'm going to jump in, conscious of time, to just to show you the specifics. Oh, we're okay? Great, Jean, thanks. To show you the specifics of what that output looks like. So you go through Market Finder and you pop in your information around your business. You can select your potential markets. Let's say I'm interested in actually expanding to France, Spain, and Australia, or in this instance, the UK, Germany, and France. Just at a very top level, we'll give you a scorecard across each of these countries, across a range of individual metrics. So first of all, we'll give you an idea of the monthly searches. So again, let's stick to the example of a travel agent. Let's say we are a travel agent and we sell package holidays. We'll give you an idea of the monthly query volume per country within your industry. The Google Ads competitiveness. So as I mentioned, every time somebody searches a keyword, we're running an auction. Some auctions are considerably more competitive than others, and some don't have as many businesses in those auctions. So we'll give you an idea of, well, actually, as an example here, Canada has quite a low number of individuals competing for these keywords. We'll give you a demographic breakdown like monthly disposable income, an ease of doing business metric, which is broken out into things like logistics, tax, and bureaucracy related issues. And then we go even further. So this is not just useful for SMEs. I would also say it's really useful for doing any type of research into the specifics of a country profile. Like, we will give you the specific breakdown of a population size, the currency they use, the median age, so you can get a better idea of if this is suited to your demographic within that country, for example. The more detailed understanding of the economic profile, so you can get a really good insight into whether or not, again, that market is more suitable to your type of product that you're selling. If it's a high value product, if you sell luxury holidays and you're actually focused on countries that have very high GDP or very, very high net disposable income for households, all of that information is provided. And then similarly, the online profile. Not all countries are necessarily as advanced as Ireland from an online perspective. The level of access to online and the level of online commerce isn't the same across the board. So getting an understanding around the usage of different operating models of Android versus iOS, for example, of monthly searches across the individual categories. You get all of this information just by inputting your business, your website name. And then also some really interesting stuff around logistics. You know, we'll potentially connect you with the logistic partners. If you've never done this previously and you've never shipped to Canada or Australia, how do I get in contact with a supplier like DHL? You can do it all through this platform, as well as a guide on how to do it. And we've seen a huge amount of success with this, even more recently for a couple of, so I know Aaron Sweater Market, Skellig gift store, off the back of the Banshees of Inisherin success. We have seen an explosion in people searching for Irish craft gifts or those types of Aaron Sweater markets. And this has been really, really useful for the likes of Aaron Sweater to identify either Northern American markets or even cities within America that there's a particularly high interest, be it in Boston or be it in New York or whatever it might be. So really useful. And again, this is all down to consumer expectations. If you're going to do this, you have to do it right. If a buyer is going to buy from a non-domestic country, there's significantly strong expectations. They expect the ability to be able to return your goods, for example. So the range of return options is significantly important, and localization is key. They expect to understand what you're selling to them. You have to be able to show it to them in English or in a local language, in French or Italian. And again, this will talk you through the specifics of all that. Similar with Payment Fit, not all countries use the exact same payment methodology as Ireland, so that website will take you through all of the specifics. So one last plug again on this resource will give you a good insight into all of that. There's free training online on any of those in a small bit more detail. But for the moment, I hope it was useful. Thank you for sticking it out over so many slides, but I'll share around with Laura and the team afterwards, because I know there's a lot of note-taking. But again, all of this is available online, so feel free to follow up with me afterwards. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, John. So just a few people that we want to thank. We want to thank Ray Ford over there in EAV Visual. He's absolutely paid a blinder today, so thank you very much. And his colleague up there on camera, thank you very much. You did a great job today, absolutely fantastic. I'd like to thank our own technicians here on campus, so Colin, Terence and Pat Lappin. I don't see them here, but they're always in the background helping us. Is Terence up there? No? Okay, he was earlier, but I really want to thank them because they're always on board helping us. Just all the speakers, and I'm going to name them. So Pat Rowland, thank you so much. Brenda Mannion, Una Fox and her team, Kieran Crean, Valerie Butler, our own colleague, thank you very much. Jane Mangan and Miles Upton, thank you very much for coming in and travelling from Galway as well and Dublin. And John Gallagher as well, thank you so much, all the speakers for coming here. They come and they're not paid. So just to let you know that they come voluntary to spread their information here for us, and I really appreciate it. And so what goes around comes around, and everybody knows what you do, so give them a little bit of business. So just a last word. At the moment, you know, it's an exciting year for us because it's the first year of our new Atlantic Technological University. And so we have colleagues streaming in from Letterkenny, from Donegal, from Sligo, from St. Angela's in Sligo, and we have colleagues in Galway and across the region. So just like to say thank you for joining us, and I know our own colleagues in the business school in Galway are behind us. They're Lorna and Lucia down there in Galway, they're joining us online. So I'd like to just thank them for bringing their groups in online to us and everybody online. And if we can help you in any way, you know, we're accessible. The Department of Enterprise and Technology, the School of Business. Do contact us. You have our emails now. You can contact us through the digital website and tell us what you need from us. Okay, that's really important. We need to be able to serve you. So we're in the business of customer service as well. So please do tell us. Again, click on that survey. Just a last word. One of our colleagues, our senior colleague, Des Foley, is working on the ATU strategy, the new strategy for ATU, and I suppose it's really important that we know what the community wants from us. So just to think of that when you're communicating with us, that we are in the same business. We're working and we're educating together, and I think you could see that today. Most of the speakers were talking about education. We're talking about learning, and John, you talked about learning and continuously watching videos and everything. So we're all in the same kind of business. If you want to react and keep transforming your business and reacting to change, it's continuous learning that's important. So let us help you when we can. So just closing it up today and thanking everybody and all my colleagues who did so much work, Noreen and Sharon and Laura and Turlock up there. So thank you all.